Oh my gosh.
We are so live.
We're so live right now?
Incredibly live.
Man, like I always say, I haven't been this live in nearly 24 hours. It's so great to be here with everybody. Ricky, Dan, how are you guys?
Doing excellent. How are you?
I'm good. Life is good. We're in Utah. We finally got some snow in Utah. It's been the driest winter on record, and we finally got some snow, so we're feeling blessed out here. What about out there in California and New York?
We got rained on. I woke up to hail at like 7 a.m. yesterday. It was like absolutely just crashing hail.
Hiccup.
Ricky stuttering. Hiccup. Dan, how's New York? Tell us, bail us out.
Dang.
Upstate New York, we've been warming up a little bit lately. We're having a little bit of a melt, not a full one, but we've had a pretty decent snowfall this winter. Snowblower's gotten quite a bit of usage, so it's nice to warm up a little bit. We had a stretch there. Actually, I ran out of propane. I live out in the woods. There's no natural gas here. I ran out of propane. It was so cold for like that 4 or 5 week span. They told me like people were running out left and right. I'm on autofill. They're supposed to keep me topped up, and their calculations, whatever, I ran out of propane. That was not fun.
Wow. So if you guys have Dan's P.O. box, send him some extra candles. He's going to need it for this winter. It sounds like your favorite Pokemon is going to be Chandelure. And we're here for Midweek Machamps. And it's Wednesday. It's the second Wednesday. And we are discussing what I think is one of the most important topics of the entire year this week. That is, what's going on with this market boom? Is it this? What's the same? What's different? Is it going to be like it was 5-6 years ago, 10 years ago when we've been through similar cycles? And for this specific topic, we wanted to bring on an expert, someone who's been there and also done that. And that is Dan from KetchumAll Collectibles. He is a full-time Pokemon businessman. And we thank you so much for your time, my friend.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I am quite the fan of the live stream setup. I've been doing one on my own channel, my own podcast with old school Pokemon over there. So I'm no stranger to the YouTube live space.
Yes, you're a veteran in many ways. But before we dive into some of our traditional topics, maybe we kind of recap 2 weeks ago what we chatted about. It was kind of a collector friendly stream last time. Ricky, tell the people what we were up to.
Yeah, we took a breather from the market and business talk and spent most of the time just tier listing the top chases from X, Y, and Sun and Moon. And I think we were a little surprised at the results, but it was really fun and interactive. It's always fun with the chat, getting involved on like, where does this card belong on the tier list? So it was really fun. So if you missed that one, catch up on it after this one.
Yeah, but we're here now. We're going to be talking market. We're going to be talking market cycles, boom, bust. What's the same as it used to be? What's different? Obviously, there's huge news in the TCG world from this past weekend that we're going to go over. There's updates on PSA grading pricing we're going to chat about. So really a juicy and meaty stream that we're going to have, guys. So we appreciate you being here. But let's dive into our traditional topics and start with some collector stuff. So maybe we'll share, well, for Ricky and I, maybe a recent personal collection pickup. And then for Dan, because you are our guest host today, you can choose any PC item that you have, whether you've gotten it recently or you've had it since you were, just collecting as a young guy. So maybe we start with you, Dan. Actually, I'm curious what you brought for the show, for show and tell.
I'll do a couple different cards. One package is I haven't even paid for it yet, so it's not quite en route, but it will be soon. But one pickup that I made. So it's a PSA 10 Burn Tower. It is not the Burn Tower like the basic trainer card English language that you can get in Heart Gold Soul Silver Triumphant, I believe it was. But yeah, it's a prize card. It's a Japanese prize card. I don't think it's along the lines of like 10 or 100 copies. It's thousands of copies. I don't even know what the pop is off the top of my head. But we're going to be talking about booms later. This is a card that I used to buy. I used to buy on Bai. I used to buy it through Yahoo Japan, and I used to buy copies, import them from Japan, and grade them. And I always had one or two kicking around in my collection. But I do the business side of it too, and I'd make money on it. And last boom, 2020, 2021, this card peaked at like $5,000 or $6,000. And I at the time I had a handful, and I sold them all. It's like, I love this card, but the market loves it more than I do. And recently, I know we all know Fanatics and eBay, and we all know the live streams, and one of the old like boomer auction houses, as they call them, which we'll talk about a little bit upcoming, the golden one that just happened. But Heritage a couple months ago, I just happened to be browsing through their offerings, and I won this for a little over $3,000. So half of what I sold it for 5 years ago. And again, we'll address it more later. I'll spare it until then. But in a lot of ways, we're booming bigger than we were 5 years ago. But there are certain cards that I feel are under the radar. And this is one of them. It's 50% of what I sold it for 5 years ago. Quick little add-on too that I'll do. This is my show and tell. The other one that I'll just tell about. I won a couple trophy cards at Golden. I won a half art Pikachu. So one of my former Collector Boy Dan endeavors that I did between the years of 2014 and 2021, one of my big things that I did, one of my claims to fame, maybe if you followed me for a long time, I owned a full art trophy Pikachu set. The cards that are awarded to the winners of the TCG, the VGC, and Pokemon Go at every World Championship. So I had a full art 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, 2021 happened. I moved on from them. The market valued them more than I did. And funny enough, kind of the same ratio. I paid about 50% of what I sold them for years ago. And it's like a little bit of PC, Dan, a little bit of speculation. It just felt like a decent value buy given the situation that I'm in. So there's my long, ranty, rambly collector pickup.
So you sold it for 5 or 6, 4 or 5 years ago. Then you just bought it back for $3,000 now. This sounds like an infinite money glitch. Am I getting something wrong?
Yes, it is. Definitely something that I've not done for the first time. But yeah, buy low, sell high, or sell high and rebuy low years later. I mean, people think things only go up, but there are times where even cards that you can make good fundamentals, good like low pop, high quality art, all that stuff. Even sometimes those can get a little bit frothy. They can kind of have a long period of sustained downward trend or plateauing.
Yes, absolutely. Or rediscovered, like they're saying here in the chat. Yeah, that tends to happen. It tends to happen with these market cycles because a lot of times it's new people that are coming into the hobby in that period of time, and new people discover your burned tower card and decide that they want it, and they don't have the price memory that maybe you have. In this case, your price memory is serving you. Because you were able to get out of the top and get back in somewhere near the middle or the bottom, and now you can ride that wave back up, hopefully. Yeah, I love that play. Sounds fun. I do want to ask one question about it, because for whatever reason, maybe it's just because I'm just a basic Pokemon collector, but I've never been attracted to like the trophy cards or the championship cards. But I see when you talk about your personal collection, the items that have meant the most to you, they tend to be those extremely exclusive ones that were given out to players or whatever back in the day. And for me, I've been like, why would I ever want that? Like, I don't have a memory attached to playing the game competitively or, winning any awards or anything. So I'll leave that to the people that are more into that. But why are you into it, Dan?
So here's something that I can share that maybe will open your eyes to a different perspective. So I've commonly heard the sentiment of like, why buy someone else's accomplishment? Why buy someone else's achievement? And I fully understand it. Someone else went and won, and they have the memories of going to their leagues, going to their regionals, winning that trophy, and that's great. And Collector Boy Dan back in 2014, he set his sights high. He had the desire to not only collect every chase card, but to personally pull every chase card. So the thing that I'll push back a little bit on you, kind of mostly teasing, but I think it is analogous to some extent. At one point, I had every WotC chase card in PSA 9 first edition. The only one that I still retain today is my favorite art in the hobby. This is my singular favorite art in the hobby. I've owned it for years. It is the original one that I pulled years ago and graded.
Wow.
This is one of my other top 5 arts in the hobby, the one that I talked about tonight. But This card I pulled, I did the thing. I pulled it myself. To me, if you didn't pull it yourself, it's kind of cheating. Maybe there's some people who play RuneScape out there. Iron Man rules. Iron Man rules are like you have to go, you have to get the drop, you have to earn it, you have to grade it yourself. Otherwise, you're buying someone else's achievement, are you not? Kind of a mostly cheeky thing, but I think the sentiment kind of applies, and I think it's kind of analogous. So that's my cheeky retort towards buying someone else's accomplishment, right?
I love it. Now I feel so bad for like all the Moonbryon 10s that I've sold, pulled, graded, and sold. Like, goodness me, I should get those back. Otherwise, everything I own is meaningless.
Yeah, I mean, if you didn't pull it yourself and grade it yourself, it's someone else's accomplishment. Someone else did the dirty work, and you're just swooping in the same way that I swooped in on those trophies. Would I love someday to be the very best like no one ever was and win one? Yes, but collector boy Dan definitely kind of like summited the peak as far as all my English set collecting desires. So the next thing that I chased was like rarity, true scarcity. And I went for your Japanese prize cards, your trophy cards, because beyond that, there was nothing else other than paying up for a black label or a 10 or whatever, which I didn't highly value. So hopefully that, like, I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything, but hopefully that at least like lends people some idea towards my line of thinking, if that makes sense.
Totally understand. And I love it. And like some of that I definitely share personally with a lot of the cards that I would be very hard pressed to part with. They're the low pop ones. They're the ones that are hard to grade, hard to pull. And only a handful of people on planet Earth are going to be able to own them just because there's not so many of them. Ricky, maybe you go.
Sure. As I was preparing for this, I was like, man, I don't know if I picked anything up. And then I remembered that I picked up a few things. So the first thing is this.
Ooh.
Just working on this. Pretty minty. But yeah, I'm just working on, y'all know I'm working on the LC reverse.
Yeah, those birds, their birds are so nice.
Definitely. Yeah, they are. It's a very cool card for sure. And then I actually had a few, but I'll do quick ones. This I graded myself.
Oh no.
Ricky's had some internet popping in and out, but he'll be right back. It looks like he's got Dragonite V. You said you graded that yourself?
Yeah, sorry, y'all. Am I back?
Yes.
Yep, you're back.
Sorry. Dragonite V, it was graded it myself, and it was sitting in my binder for a while. So it was one of those like collector decisions. I was holding on to it, and then occasionally I go through my binder. I'm like, do I still love everything here? Is there anything that I should? Anyway, I was looking at it. I was like, this is a very, very clean copy. So I had an obvious 9 near mint copy in my inventory, and I kind of just swapped the two. Yeah. And then graded this. So I'll probably keep that. I love that card. And then I against my better judgment, because I'm working on Legendary Reverse, I like the Southern Island cards, and I think I might just much longer term, like I'm not going to go chasing them, but if they sort of show up for me, I might try to do all of Southern Island, English and Japanese. And the way these reverses are, they're very likely, like they're very prone to having a swirl like that right there.
Yeah.
And so I'm tempted to do what I did with the Lugias, and like the English ones all have to have a swirl. Might be the way that I go about it.
Yeah, no, very possible too, because there's only like 6 reverses or something.
Yeah, there's not that many.
Yeah, I love that idea. One of my first WotC sets that I completed was Southern Islands, and it's so nice, and it's in the same binder with my WotC promo set, and it's just the cards that you don't get to see quite as much, but they still have that same nostalgia because most of us had a handful of them as kids. I really, really like those.
Me too.
Very cool. My turn?
Your turn.
Okay, so I don't think I showed these on 2 weeks ago. I did show them on my drip stream a while back, but I want to make sure that I showed these. So a couple of e-reader PSA 10 pickups that I got from Atlanta.
Oh.
So we've got Nidoking Aquapolis and Machamp Expedition. These are both under 100 population in the world in the PSA 10. And surprisingly very affordable. Now, like, obviously, we are booming. So even since I bought this Machamp, it's already comped for like $600 more than I paid for it, which we love. Thank you, eBay people who are buying expensive cards. But the reason I got these ones is because the math on them just doesn't make any sense. Like, they're really popular Pokemon, cool artworks, really low pop, PSA 10s, and they are both in this condition in a 10 less expensive than like a heavy pack from the set that they come from.
Mhm.
And so, like, not that I think that they're gonna, eclipse that price, but to me that just shows that, like, I'm comfortable valuing them at or above what the market has them, and so I'm comfortable owning them for the time being, because I just think that if I opened like a heavy Aquapolis pack and pulled a Nidoking and graded it a 10, I'd be so pumped.
Yeah.
But I would pay like probably $600 or $700 more than just buying the 10. And so yeah, and I needed it because I didn't have the Expedition Machamp yet. I do have the Skyridge one, and I've got some other opinions about these e-readers and other mid-era low pop 10s that I want to share later on in the live stream in a couple different areas. But yeah, those are my PC editions for this week.
Love it. Very cool. That Machamp is tough.
It is tough. Yeah, it's extremely green. If you guys look it up on your own time, it's probably the greenest Machamp aside of maybe, I think there's a Hidden Legends Machamp that's just extremely green. But who knows why? But yeah, I wanted to dive into the PC a little bit longer today because we're about to launch into just thick, heavy market talk for the rest of the evening. So for those of you who are here for the love of the game, this might be where it ends for you. We're about to transition into some business.
The love of the other, a different part of the game. I think a lot of the people that watch this like both sides of it. Like,
sure, love of the business game is on deck.
Totally. And I see some folks are asking questions in the chat. Just a reminder, we do Q&A at the end. If there's something really relevant, we'll interact with the chat throughout. But we'll just star these and come back to them in our last half hour or so of the stream.
Love it.
Cool. Favorite or notable deals recently?
Yeah, for me, if I were a better YouTuber, I would have done a really nice vlog of the day. I did do my own version of it. I did a very spreadsheet heavy. Here's what I bought. Here's the percentages I paid. Here's the outlets that I'm going to sell them through, the live streams and consignments and this and that and the other thing. But yeah, it was a cool, I guess kind of boring, kind of cool, depending on the angle, the way in which you interact, the way in which you look at it. But for me, I picked up 2 collections into the 6 figures. They were both independently high 5 figures. So it was the single most spendy day in Pokemon history for me. 12 years of doing business, almost 5 years of being full-time. I spent like 130 something grand. And what it entailed was my dad has a pickup truck and he has a big enclosed trailer. So I hit him up and I borrowed that basically. And we drove down to New Jersey. It was 4 hours down. It was an hour from collection 1 to collection 2. And it was 5 hours back home. So it was like a 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. venture.
Well, you coordinated to pick up both of those in one day?
Yeah. I double dipped, and it's like, hey, it was too much to fit in my minivan. So it was like, I need to employ my dad's truck, but it was kind of a little bit almost too much to have in a truck. So it's like, we need to bring the trailer. I might as well fill it. And if you watch the video, I shared a couple screenshots or a couple of pictures of what it looked like. We could have fit 6 collections. We underdid it from what we should have done. We should have made it the weekend and found 4 more collections. But it was just a great time. It was 8-10 hours on the road with my dad, the famed Pokemon investor, my father. So yeah, just chatting with him, having a good time. Father Sunday. We did have like a interesting wrench kind of thrown into the whole plan too. We broke down. So we got to deal 1 and we broke down. So like from the content angle, from the video angle, it would have been so good to be like properly documenting and vlogging that, because it's like, oh man, it would have felt scripted, it would have felt rehearsed or whatever. But it just so happened that like we broke down where the deal was. We needed to talk and negotiate the deal anyway. So me and the guy were up in his apartment negotiating the deal, adding some slabs to the deal, adding some singles, and my dad's on his back in the parking lot. We had to drive down to Napa. He's putting a new starter in his truck. But he's very handy. He's a mechanic, welder, fabricator, all different kinds of things. So it was right up his alley. He had that thing done before we finished negotiating our deal, and we were on the road. But we had an interesting near miss too, because like anyone familiar with the New York State Thruway, you can't like have your own tow truck. You can't have your own equipment or machinery like on the Thruway. If you ever break down on the Thruway or get in an accident on the Thruway, they have certain services that you have to use. Very expensive, very, very tedious, very cumbersome. We stopped for gas on the way. So we stopped for gas, turned the truck off, filled it up, went and got a bite to eat. Had we broken down there, had the starter like had an issue there only an hour and a half prior, it would have been so different. It would have been a nightmare. It would have shifted the schedule for both deals. We probably would have had to do an overnight. Like it would have been brutal. And we just got so fortunate. Like for a bad thing happening, the way in which it happened was like perfect. It would have just been like a good wrinkle to, hey, here's a massive Pokemon deal. Oh no, the drama comes out, and then how it was resolved. And like, I feel like there was a good story there. I'm just not a storyteller. So I showed a couple spreadsheets and that was it. And a little slideshow. My dad took like a selfie underneath the truck, changing out the starter. So I had that to show off.
Nice. What did your dad charge you for transportation and mechanic services?
So my dad, he is a business owner. He owns his own business, and he works for other people too. And sometimes he renders his services for other people. He's got HVAC buddies. He's got plumbing buddies. I know his daily rate. So I compensated him his full daily rate. I filled the truck with gas.
Oh, you actually did.
Oh, I did. I was literally joking, and I love how on the nose it is. Like, oh yeah, we sent him $432.48.
He tried declining it, but the way that no cash exchange hands. What I told him that I'm going to do, and I'm going to do, I'm just going to credit him. We have an ongoing spreadsheet for the pallets. So some money exchanges hands. So I credited him X amount of money towards our next pallet. So it's
he fixes the truck.
Refuse
that'll
this.
Be one Destined Rivals booster box. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So again, like I feel like the content was there. I didn't do it the right way, and I did it my own antiviral way.
I love that. It's an incredible story. There's so much good dad energy there, right? Like, signs up to help the son, equipment breaks down, but that's okay because he's so handy and fixes it. Like, this is just the most dad thing of all time. What a cool deal. It sounds like because you needed so much space, it was mostly sealed product.
Oh yeah. I didn't even detail there what it was. So deal number one was like high 60s, somewhere in there. And it was slab, singles, and sealed. It was probably half value wise with slabs. So a decent chunk of slabs there, but a lot of bulky, a lot of collection boxes, a lot of things that wouldn't have shipped very easily. And I do deals all the time where people ship to me. I bought a $100,000 collection in the late fall that they shipped me in 20, 50-pound boxes and literally a half a ton of Pokemon cards. So this would have been probably over $1,000 to ship both deals to me. So instead we did the whole trek and made a day of it. But first one, nothing too overly exciting. The first one was more specifically like a straight up flip. It's like, hey, I'm going to buy in the 70s. I'm going to just resell everything basically through the live streams, through the consignment, whatever. The second one was a guy that I knew. Shout out to L Dubs if you're out there listening. Cool guy. Known him around various Discords for a while. And he just happened to be selling kind of his like investments. And it was more just your brown boxes with your red stop tape. It was ironically like it was things that some of them are going to make it to the pallet. So me and my dad just had a subsidized way to get like items onto our pallet. So it was a win-win there. Hit him with a bunch of liquidity and added some stuff to the pallets that we were looking to add anyways.
Cool. Yeah, I love it. That's one of the probably the most like steady ways that I've tried to grow our business and the value and the security for the future is when we take in sealed at the table or do, offline, off market, bulk deals is I'll sit on a lot of that sealed and have future plans for it. Sounds like we are in the same vein there. I know Ricky does quite a bit of the same. What about you, Ricky? What's a notable deal you want to chat about?
Yeah, I didn't have any that were like nearly as exciting as Dan's, but I have one that I think had heart to it. It was a little grounding. So I met up locally with someone who reached out to me. They emailed me and basically said they're local to my area. They had some cards to sell, and they trusted me to have high integrity in the deal. So long story short is this guy I think he worked for the city or something like that. And he got in an accident where he like flipped over the handlebars of a bike during work, and he had a traumatic brain injury. And so he's like recovered a lot, but he has some like medical bills and things related to that he needed to sell the cards for. So they didn't like want to sell it, but they were like, if I'm going to sell it, I want to sell it to somebody that I know I can trust to take care of me and comp things fairly and all that. So I just call that one out, because as much as it sucks that for that to happen, those human moments always kind of bring me back to the kinds of interactions that I tend to appreciate the most as somebody who buys and sells Pokemon cards, is that trust and that relationship, seeing what they collected and finding new homes for it. It's just, it gets to be win-win, even when it's kind of in a slightly bummer situation. So that was the one that just stood out for me, because it had, there was like emotion to it. And most of what I've done since the last stream is just really smooth story sales. I have sold like $20,000 of cards in the last few weeks, but nothing that really had a story to it other than that. So that was the one that came to mind for me.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah, the one I want to talk about today is a deal that actually we did at Hawaii PopCon, and it made its way into one of our long form videos that was posted, I think, last Friday. And it was this gentleman who came to the table, and everything he had binders, slabs, and a sealed box. Everything was from the 20th anniversary Japanese set CP6. And he had bought 6 boxes back in like 2016, opened 5 of them, and then just bindered all of the hits. And then like late last year decided to go through what he had. And he still had a sealed box, and he took some of the bigger hits and he graded them, and he got quite a few 10s, and they were just, in perfect condition, sitting in his binder for 9 years or whatever it was. And, back then I'm sure CP6 boxes were cheap. What do you think, Dan? Like 2016 CP6, like what are you paying, like $100 for a box?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a time where it was even cheaper than that. But my memory tying things to specific years is not amazing. But yeah, those things are so expensive now. It's crazy.
Yeah. And so he hits a PSA 10 on the Mega Charizard, on the Gold Border Charizard, Blastoise, and Venusaur. And then he hit more than 110 on a few things, and he kept like a duplicate of each 10 that he hit back at his house, but he wanted to sell his duplicates at the show. So I paid him nearly $10,000 for a single box, and then those 1, 2, 3 slabs, the Mega Charizard, regular Charizard, and the Venusaur. I think that's all it was. And I was like, wow, like, you've done really well on these things, and obviously recouped all the money. And he says, oh man, he basically insinuated that he probably 5 or 6x'd his money just on that single transaction, and then went and sold the rest of the stuff that he brought to the show for thousands and thousands more to other vendors and stuff like that. So like, it just goes to show that like, sometimes as a collector, you just get paid, and things go right for you. Like he probably pulled those cards and when they were worth less than $50 a piece, and just had the forethought to keep them in a binder and kind of forget about them. And yeah, it was cool and beautiful, beautiful cards. I've kept the box because I really, really love that kind of classic Ken Sugimori artwork on the front of it. And even though it was like hitting all-time highs in January, it's also continued to sell for even more since then. So he made all that money, and now I've bought the things and I've done well with them. And that's just kind of the circle of the collector buy, sell, trade life.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dang. That's as Ern says, right? Collectors get paid, something like that.
Shout out Ern.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guys. Let's go into the tall grass. Before we do, some love in the chat here from Spats Cards. Thanks for the super chat. Dance the coat. Wind Waker says, never apologize for your thick, heavy market talk, Jake.
Yeah. Thanks for those super chats, guys. Dan, I'll be sure to get you that $1.30 or whatever for that super chat. Okay. I owe you. Okay. You send me an invoice.
Spat is one of my independent contractors, so I make a percentage off what he does anyways. I don't need part of that one.
I see. So this is a write-off for him.
Yeah, yep, for sure. He's just brown nosing a little bit, I guess.
No, it's part of the marketing budget you've entrusted him with.
Yeah.
Exactly. This is just self-promotion.
And get a little plug in the Machamps. All right, let's get into the tall grass, Jake.
Let's mosey on into the tall grass. We've got some juicy topics today, guys. So where are we headed? Let's walk right out of Cerulean City to the east, and we'll find ourselves that bug catcher with a Venonat, and then go in the tall grass right there. And what do we find?
Perfect. Well, interestingly, for some reason, right there in that particular patch of tall grass is Professional Sports Authentication updating their pricing and services in February. It's weird that that's in the tall grass there outside of Cerulean City, but there it is. What do we
There
think
it is indeed.
There it is.
That's probably what the president CEO of Collector said when someone proposed this in a board meeting. What if we just raise our prices to make more revenue? And he was like, there it is. That's it.
This is an interesting one, right? Like, because people grade all kinds of stuff with PSA, and they're basically like, if you read this this like press release, they're basically like, please stop sending us stuff. Like, we literally can't scale. Like it's like they're like begging for mercy in this stuff. And so, like, if you're a business, right? Like, it's fun to be annoyed at PSA for all kinds of things that we should be annoyed at them for, increasing prices and turnaround times. It's fun to make fun of that. But also, like, if you're a business and you've set a price point, and then the demand is way more than you can like actually service, why not increase your price point until it hits equilibrium? This is a 101.
I mean, it's the very obvious decision, right? And the other thing to consider, I know some people have kind of talked about this line of thinking as well. If you're a business and you know that you're in a upward trajectory part of the market cycle, and you need to protect yourself, like, you don't want to grow too big that you have to scale things back with redundancy and layoffs if things turn around in the other direction. Go ask all the tech companies on planet Earth in 2022 and 2023. Like, how many tech companies were hiring like double, triple their size in a period of 6 months in 2021, just so that they could go and fire those people 12, 18 months later?
Yeah.
PSA, I understand the forethought. They probably don't want to do that. So what's your other option if there's record demand for your service? It's raise price, right? Because with laws of supply and demand, as price goes up, then you would think that demand should go slightly down because it prices some people out of their interest to get these services. But we're also in kind of an interesting industry. Ironically, it seems like when things go up in price, people just want to get more involved.
Demand goes up. Yes.
Yeah. Some truth to that.
So people have asked me, what's your opinion on PSA raising their prices? And my kind of gunshot reaction was, PSA can do whatever they want. They have such a stranglehold on everyone's desire to, increase the value of their collectibles. They could double this price of the value bulk, and they've done that before, and they would still have record demand. They could triple it. They'd still have record demand, because everyone would just have to adjust their expectations of the value of their item. Like back in 2021, when they had the limited submissions and you had to pay $50 a card no matter what, or your name had to be drawn in a lottery for you to even have a chance to grade something. All that did is made PSA cards that shouldn't have been worth very much money worth a lot of money. Go ask that Charizard V from Champion's Path, or how many of those Vivid Voltage pre-release Charizards that Dan probably made thousands of dollars on, that are nice cards, but they're not $500 cards. But they are if your grading fee is $200. What's your take, Dan?
Yeah, one thing that this comes back to, and it's something that I say quite frequently, is I am short on plastic, long on cardboard. I don't fully understand I can't even call it appreciation. Like I appreciate what the third party graders do for us. They increase the liquidity. They take out that's I can't say subjectivity. They take out the disagreement between two uh, parties that are directly involved and care. They are that third party, unbiased opinion, right? Not super consistent, not all that stuff, but they are unbiased at least. Well, theoretically, they're unbiased. Upcharges aside, all that conversation that you could get into. But fundamentally, at the end of the day, it's a supply and demand conversation. And if you scroll up some, look at the inbound. Their inbound is vastly exceeding their outbound, and that is a problem. There are two ways to control for that. And if you look back, like I've been here 12 years, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but 12 years ago, they were grading for $6 a card, and they were grading significantly less cards. Over time, demand rose. They scaled for some of it, and they increased prices for some of it. Um, Mathematically, as far as like making a profit, I am confident that PSA could grade for $10 a card today and do good business and make good money. But them doing that, them scaling infinitely to demand, is a very dangerous game to play. One thing that people don't like to admit to, but is a fundamental truth in a luxury good, a collectible good type space. I couldn't remember the term off the top of my head, but I Googled it quickly. Veblen goods, they call them. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Veblen goods are luxury items such as designer handbags, supercars, fine jewelry. I would add Pokemon cards, for which demand increases as the price increases.
Yeah.
If and when you made everything too accessible, it would be less demanded. It would be inherently less valuable. Collectibles are built off scarcity. The intrinsic value of all of this stuff is zero. There's no cash flows. There's no underlying utility to it, as far as like gold and silver have some amount of utility and technology, and traditional investments, they have the cash flows, they have underlying businesses. This is all just kind of like made up, and people don't love to hear it, but I don't know what the number is. Maybe it's 100 million cards a month. Demand is very high. We're very short of what the demand is. It might take 100 million cards a month, but there are too many cards that you could produce that would make it all fall apart. So you do not want the house of cards to fall. It is very intelligent that Pokemon is scaling cautiously. It is very intelligent that PSA is scaling cautiously, because the issue that you run into if you overshoot demand, hopefully people can follow along here. I know I can get ranty, rambly. I'm not I'm not too well spoken. So sometimes I maybe don't translate what's in my head very well. But say demand is X right now. X is a very, very large number. PSA is producing, they are grading below X. They are grading some amount of cards that is obviously below what the demand is. If and when they overshot it, say that they just overnight snap their fingers. It's a little bit more complicated than that to hire the people. As far as like tech wise, it's sonic welders, it's plastic, it's not that complex as far as production wise goes. But getting the talent, getting the graders is a little bit complicated. But say that they could snap their fingers and overnight they could just make 1x in even 2x. Say that they can just supply twice what today's demand is. The issue with doing that, the issue with exceeding the demand of X, simultaneously, you won't know what the number is. You'll be guessing. You'll overrun the number. You'll overshoot it. You'll find out one day that you made 2x. And then what happens when you've doubled the supply of what the demand is? Now your X drops by 50%. So now you're not double what you needed to have. Now you're 4 times what you needed to have. And that happened in 2002. That happened in 2003. I wasn't around then, but the Wayback Machine, if you use it and you go to Hills Wholesale Gaming, if you go to different websites, base set unlimited booster boxes were $30 a piece. Pokemon almost died. Base set unlimited, Rocket, Jungle, Fossil, $30 a piece. Sports cards around the same time had a very similar thing going on. They saved themselves from the junk wax era with serialization and everything. Pokemon saved themselves by just doing good business for a decade. They were running on fumes for a decade. And they eventually came around, and obviously base set boxes are $40,000 now, $40,000. But overproducing demand in a Veblen good, in a luxury high-end collectible type item is a very dangerous game to play. So I'm glad PSA increases the prices as opposed to just infinitely scaling to meet demand. Demand is very fickle.
Yeah, I mean the way you're wording it here, like it sounds a lot less like just individual business protection, individual, the finding that balance between supply and demand of your own service, but also recognizing that they are a market mover and that what they decide to do has wide sweeping impact on all the people that interact with the hobby, regardless of whether they grade cards or not, or even collect graded cards or not. And yeah, I think that when there is that kind of player in the industry, we're always going to look at them with suspicion. It's almost like, not to get political, but it's almost like the government, like when something has so much power and influence over your life or potentially over your life, like our natural human reaction is to be like, ooh, like how dare they have so much power, and how dare they decide to make this change that upsets the balance that I had expected to continue for some foreseeable future. But at the end of the day, for all we know, the decision that they've made here protects their business interests. It ensures that they're going to be more steady for years to come. And we're all going to benefit from that and from the decision that was made here. And all it costed us was an extra $3 per bulk card. Or put into the government analogy, all it costed us was an additional 1% on our income tax. And we got to have all these benefits that we just kind of passively enjoyed for years to come. So it's tough. I know that there's big opinions on both sides, primarily negative opinions from the collector. But it seems to me like the best way to react to this is just to be like, yeah, this is just what it is. And if you're grading cards, you're probably hoping to make a much larger than $3 spread per card anyways. And so the actual impact on you is if you just have one more card that you put in your submission with a 70% gem rate on average, you're going to pay for this additional cost. And so do that math and make sure that you take care of your own interests in light of these interests.
Yeah. Yeah, the big thing for me with this that changes my behavior at all is not the price, but the turnaround times. That just changes the equation a little bit on should you grade or should you just move through if you're somebody who is reselling cards.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had that question actually come up in our Discord quite a bit. Like, should I grade this? Should I flip it? And for so many cards, especially for those who have maybe comparatively smaller revenue or inventory size, where sending any amount of cards to PSA is actually a large percentage of your inventory. If that's true for you, then for the vast majority of cards, it does not make sense to grade because you could buy, sell, trade 5, 6, 10 times in that same period of time. But for people that are doing things at a higher level, Dan's got all these other businesses, and I've got Ricky and I have vending and streaming and whatever we're working on. And if you have 100 cards at PSA, that's maybe a smaller percentage of our overall business interested inventory, and so it can make sense. And so I'll probably still be grading cards this year, but I also have to. I'm like anyone else. I'm going to be much more judicious than I maybe used to be, and it'll have to be a large spread between near mint and PSA 9 or 10 that I'm hoping to get if I'm going to send a card this year with these prices and turnaround times.
Yeah, I'm with you.
One angle you can add too, and I always say that we're all in the same arena of Pokemon. Pokemon is the arena that we're all in together. We're all playing very different games, and we're all playing by very different rules. Identify who you are, what your game you're playing is, what your goals are. If I was looking at this as a collector, I'm Collector Boy Dan. I'm building out my sets. Maybe I collect 10s, 9s, 8s, whatever the number is. If I'm collecting for the next 50 years, I'm largely not grading that much today. put them in a sleeve, put them in a nice, well protected binder, keep them all clean. And maybe I'm wrong here, maybe this ages poorly, but I truly think it will get cheaper again in the future. What did we bottom out at between 2020 when it shot up to like 300 was the cheapest tier open at one point? I think we bottomed at like $13.99. Maybe we had some specials for $13.99. We definitely never got under 10, somewhere in there. But I could see sub 15 coming around again. Will sub 10 ever come again? I don't truly know. But make a determination. How valuable is that piece of plastic to you as a collector? How valuable is that third-party opinion on grade and authenticity? Consistently inconsistent. I mean, there are cards that you can crack out 100 times, and they're going to be 8, 9, 10, depending on the day. So figure out if and how PSA is serving you. And you might come to find that like they're not serving you in a way that you really get that value out of. The same way that this card for $5,000 5 years ago, my net worth, my cash flow, my everything at the time, this card was not serving me to that extent. Today, at half the price, it is. If it never came around, I'd never own it again, and that would be fine. Maybe PSA never comes around, and you just maybe you ascend to where I realize I'm currently at. I collect cards in binders, cards that mean something to me that I'm never going to sell. I don't need the third-party opinion if I'm truly never going to sell it. I use it as a tool, though. So when I saw this come out, I use PSA, CGC, BGS. I use all these companies as a tool to increase the liquidity, to increase the ability to sell with an easier transaction, not arguing condition with my buyers. So I've run the analysis, and it's like, I think I can still make money with these numbers. So I'm still going to submit. And you might not love that. Maybe you're the truest of true collectors and you've never sold anything and you never plan to. You might not love that that's the way this is, that there's a lot of businesses kind of muddying up the waters and making it inaccessible to PSA to grade at the rate that you feel is fair. But that's just where we're at. That's just a market reality. One analogy that I've used over time is mostly a meme. I'm not a major Taylor Swift fan, but back in her country days, I actually was a pretty solid Taylor Swift fan. I watched her open in a concert for Rascal Flatts back at the New York State Fair 15 years ago. I paid $100. And so my price memory, my whole thing, the way that I valued a Taylor Swift concert was $100. And love it or hate it, she's gotten a lot bigger. She's gone a lot more mainstream. If I want to go watch country Taylor Swift, she doesn't exist in that fashion anymore. I don't have access to that. I can yell at the clouds. I can do whatever I want, but it doesn't change the thing. PSA, I used to grade there 12 years ago. It was a hidden gem. I was one of the few that were doing it $6 a card, get the cards back in 2-3 months. Those times are gone largely. So yeah, that's kind of like the way that I look at it. There are other options out there. If none of those serve you, one touches display things very nicely for less than $1 a card, right?
Yeah, for sure. I like that analogy. I was thinking the exact same thing the other day because I listen to a lot of indie artists and like a lot of bands that are small. And sometimes they break through kind of mainstream. And then the experience becomes, oh, I used to be able to buy a $25 ticket and be front row in a tiny venue. And then I'd meet the band at their merch table after. And now it's $150 and I'm all the way in the back. And like, this sucks. And it's kind of how the people sound to me. It's like, well, it's under your control. You know, it's like being mad at the prices. It's like,
they maybe like sell out and they go a little more mainstream. And again, this is mostly a meme. I wasn't like Taylor Swift's #1 fan or anything, but it's just kind of a funny analogy. I like country music. I grew up in upstate New York in the 90s country. Give me Garth Brooks, give me Alan Jackson, all that stuff. So her product has gotten worse and it's gotten more expensive. And I have no access to what I remember fondly, right? I cannot relive those days the same way that I cannot relive $6 PSA grading 12 years ago. It is what it is. Yeah, confirmed Swifty.
Ern's with us. I'm curious what the 4 Danisms were for your bingo card. I'd love to see it.
I'm assuming, yeah, there's so many of them.
Ern, if you just showed up, Shining Gyarados already happened, so make sure you got that one marked down. Yeah,
same arena, different games happened. Yeah,
Shining Gyarados, dad chat with the pallets. It's been a good night so far.
Yeah, Yeah.
We're not going for a single bingo though. We're gonna cover the whole board.
Yeah,
We're gonna
yeah,
cover the whole
exactly.
board by the end of the night.
Cover the
Nice.
whole chart.
Love
Well,
it.
in the interest of time, let's move on to our next beefy topic, huh, boys?
Yes, 100%. So it's sort of an inevitability, and hopefully the last time we have to talk about this for a while. But I sat down yesterday. My mother-in-law is in town. Sat down to lunch, and one of the first things she says is, "So you heard about the Logan Paul thing?" It's like, mm-hmm.
Top signal, top signal.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I was like, oh boy, here we go. So, 16.5 million, pretty much with buyer's premium, the most expensive trading card sale of all time, I believe.
Yep.
What's there to say, guys?
Did either of you watch the live stream or no?
I didn't catch it. I've seen some highlights and clips and stuff.
Yeah,
So
I did not watch
ready.
live, but yeah, same.
I was gonna say,
seen some discussion about the buyer and such.
get ready with your bingo card. I was actually doing my taxes that night, and I like it had to be done that night. My accountant needed the stuff. I was gonna be up till 3 a.m. anyways, so I was up till 3 a.m. finishing up my taxes and just had that on the side screen listening along. I thought it was gonna be the highest sale of all time. It wasn't overly shocking. I didn't go on Kalshi or Poly Market. I wasn't throwing bets out there, but or they're not betting, right? They're futures contracts. They're whatever they want to call them. But in kind of like the PSA conversation, I think it ties in very well. Nothing about the individual. Like, I know that there's like a past there, and there's a lot of thoughts around Logan Paul and all that. But all that aside, like, more eyes on the hobby. More eyes on the hobby is a good thing, because the alternative. I went and I watched Taylor Swift Open for Rascal Flatts. The alternative outcome that sometimes happens, that actually more frequently than your indie group kind of like hitting it big and going mainstream and becoming too expensive to see, the more frequent outcome of that is that they fizzle away to nothingness and the band breaks up. So I think it's good generally that Pokemon grows, that Pokemon becomes the most valuable trading card of all time. Maybe it makes certain things inaccessible for you. Maybe you had dreams of one day owning an Illustrator. I would have loved to own one someday. I likely never will. It will likely always be out of reach. So I think overall it's a net positive for the hobby. I know there's tons of arguments around that, but I truly believe that the eyes on it, the mainstream nature of it, I think generally is a pro. Would you guys lean towards that way, or are you more like, no, this is terrible for X, Y, and Z reason, or where do you fall on it?
I think that because the average person, and this is going to get kind of philosophical, I guess, but the average person is net positive, and bringing more people into the hobby, I think, is a net positive. Yeah, there's a lot more good actors, people with integrity, people with good intentions than there are the other side. And so getting more people involved is great. We've all heard people say that they got back into the hobby at many different times. But when I was getting back into the hobby, many of the people told me it was because they got exposed to, news through main channels about the first Logan Paul box break. And then he does, he buys this card, and there's the G.I. Joe scam that he goes through and all this stuff. And so people get involved for those kinds of pop culture reasons, along with many other reasons. And as many of them are still here, I'm really excited about it, and it's great. But I think what my main takeaway from the entire auction, including this insane number on the screen, is that last year we went through pretty much a repricing of the entire Pokemon card market and a rehabituation of what people are willing to spend on new product, old products, graded cards, like pretty much across the board. Everyone's over the past 12, 14 months has had to adjust what they're willing to put in order to participate. And with this sale, I think that in conjunction with what happened last year, I think that Pokemon card collecting, TCG collecting by extension, has reached a critical velocity And I really think that it's getting to be mainstream and valuable enough that we're never going to go back to the olden days and have things be extremely illiquid and of low value. I just don't know if that's ever going to happen again. I know that Dan hates the word guaranteed, but of all of the signs of strength in something that is technically a market of commodities, this is proving to be just as interesting, liquid, speculated about, talked about as other mainline human interests, coins, precious metals, stocks
Art.
and bonds, real estate, other stores of value. I think it's a critical velocity that trading cards is now in the conversation and will never not be again.
I'm sympathetic to the people who maybe just solely play the TCG, or like people who collect. I feel a little bit for them. People who just want to collect the cards, and they were around way before, you know, in 2018, buying $3 hits and stuff like that. Everything was readily available, and that they've never sold anything and they never plan to sell anything. But I think on the whole, this sort of stuff is positive for the hobby, probably. Somebody said it in the chat too, like, you can hate Logan Paul, but like it reminds me a little bit like Conor McGregor getting really big in MMA. You can hate Conor, but like he really, like, there's a lot of net positive that came from that in terms of attention on the sport, legislation, new fans coming into the sport, entertainment value during a time when sports weren't happening.
Contract sizes for new fighters.
Fighter pay.
Absolutely. It's a legitimizing of the industry when something like this happens or a person like this is involved.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, same thing. You could see similar things with Jake Paul in boxing, right? Like I did for a long time. I was criticized. I still would criticize a lot of the way that he's gone about his boxing career. But, you know, at the same time, he's getting these big paydays for these over-the-hill MMA guys to just show up for one bad night. And Ben Askren, he fought and knocked out. And Ben Askren had this huge health thing, and he paid for like a lot of his double lung transplant. So there's part of me that it's a little bit like a don't hate the player, hate the game thing, but I'm also very sympathetic to the people who were around before these things were talked about as like a value or asset class and investment. I understand fully why that's frustrating for people who were filling binders with $5 awesome cards, and now the same cards are $500, and they've benefited financially from that. But there's a subset of people that are like, I don't care. I would rather it all go back down to almost nothing, so I could just keep filling binders with $5 cards. Like, I get it, but I think that's a minority of who's in the hobby today, realistically. But I understand their frustration, and yeah, I just want to acknowledge that.
Yeah. I think also last point on this is, Dan, you did like I think a 30-minute or so video of kind of reviewing a lot of the things that sold as part of, like, as extension of this auction, because it wasn't just this card. Maybe for those who don't know, there was tons of things that were for sale. First edition Charizard, PSA 10, first edition box, sealed cases of tons of sets, uncut sheets, trophy cards, graded video games, tons and tons of like high-end Pokemon memorabilia and other things. And a lot of those set records too. Someone mentioned the first edition Charizard. I think did it close for nearly 1 million? Was that? But that also had like the special Logan Paul box break label. So I guess there's some premium there. But like, we're still talking about a pack pulled card that is nearing $1 million. And I think that it would be worth everyone's time to go back and watch that video from Dan to kind of understand that it wasn't just this like freak accident card with diamonds all around it. It was all sorts of different things that got eyeballs and people were bidding on. So it was more widespread than just this one slab.
Yeah, I know. Like, I think it was 950-ish thousand. It was like one bit away from cracking 1 million. Then there was a PSA 10 Gold Star Pikachu, which was well into the 150, 160,000, somewhere in there. there was all the trophies. Kind of an interesting thing because historically speaking, I remember between 2015 and 2019, I want to say, there wasn't one single public auction of a full art Pikachu trophy card. That was actually one thing that intrigued me heavily at the time. This was pre my YouTube, so you can't find my thoughts anywhere on it other than like E4 back in the day. But multiple illustrators went for sale. Multiple number 1, 2, 3 Pikachu trophy cards, TMBs, SSBs. Like a lot of people might not know what these acronyms are, but these are like the peak rarity, peak history of like Japanese prize cards. And in the time that all those were available for auction, the full art Pikachus never went up. And then just this past Sunday during this auction block, there was like 8 of them. And there was like 5 or 6 half art Pikachu cards. So I kind of saw an opportunity where the availability was like artificially higher than it ever has historically been, barring some private, I know of a couple private people who kind of sold a decent chunk of theirs in the past, but publicly at least.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. It probably signaled to those people that this was the chance to maybe maximize the return on the value of their card because there were going to be so many eyeballs on it. And it sounds like some of them went for less than what you valued them at, Dan. So you picked them up for your personal collection.
Yeah. And again, I mentioned earlier that like I largely don't see the value that the market generally does with graded cards. And then ironically, like, oh, Dan, well, why'd you buy a PSA 10 of this? Why didn't you just buy a raw copy? Fair counter. And I will elaborate a little bit. These are part PC, part speculation. Realistically, I know like SM Pratt is a guy who's pretty well known by people that have been around for a while. And he doesn't really make too many videos in the public eye these days, but I've been in his Patreon for a long time. He has a binder where he has like raw trophy Kangaskhans and raw university Magikarps. And like someday that's like one of my end games. It's very hard to bring yourself to like having so much value in all these cards just in a binder in some ways. But once you, if you get like a mid-grade card, like it really it can be justified more, but so many of the values just run so far that it's like if I had what I wanted to have in that binder, it would be a 6-figure binder and it would still be uncomfortable. So I don't know if that will ever truly come to fruition. So part of the way that I collect, and here's another analogy, I'm big on analogies tonight, is like when people set a goal, a big lofty goal, like they want to, I'm a little bit of a hiker. I'm an outdoorsy guy, a travel guy a little bit. I'm never going to hike Everest. I'm never going to climb Everest. But people don't go up there and then just like live the rest of their lives up there, right? They go up there, they plant their flag, they explore places yet unexplored for them. And they take a picture, they take a mental picture, they take in the scenery, and then they like go to the next summit. They go to the next part of their journey. And one thing that I realize about myself is I don't have infinite wealth. I don't have like hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars. The guy that won the Illustrator talking about, I'm not going to buy a whole T-Rex skeleton. I'm not going to buy the Declaration of Independence. Like all those things sound cool, but my money is very much more finite than that guy's money is. So one way that I've kind of interacted with the hobby is like I am a custodian of these pieces for some amount of time, and then I move it on to someone else. And so like I will never own every card all at once, but if I could own most of the cards for some small amount of time, that is huge for me. But like I haven't paid my invoice from Golden yet. Stay patient, Cam. I'm going to pay it. Don't worry. But I'll be the custodian of that half art Pikachu trophy card, of which I've never owned before. Maybe it's weeks, maybe it's months, maybe it's years. It will not be for 50 years though. That is part collector, part speculator. I'm going to sell that card someday. I'm not going to take it with me. The only things I'll take with me are my childhood binders and cards that I pull with friends at conventions and cards that were gifted to me by friends and things that are more meaningful to me in that regard.
I love that. Yeah, I feel very similar. And I know that I've had a similar talk track on this live stream before about, enjoying some of these pieces for the short period of time that you get to have them. And even if it is for 50 years, you still can't have it forever. Mm-hmm. And so, coming to that conclusion emotionally, it does put I think a healthy lens on owning either long-term or short-term all of these items. And I know some vendors, some people who buy, sell, trade at a high level, they consider their entire inventory their personal collection, but they just have kind of a loose definition of what that means compared to maybe the person who is bindering things to be taken off the open market for many, many years. And we're all interacting with the hobby in a different way. Speaking of interacting with the hobby, we've got big hobby news coming up on February 27th. We're just 9 days away, guys, from the official 30th anniversary day of Pokemon. How do we feel? Do we all feel old?
Oh, I feel old. That's exactly what I was gonna say. Feel old a little.
We're a little old, and we're all still hanging out with our plushies and trading cards and little Game Boy cartridges. I'm really excited about this, and maybe the first thing I want to ask to you guys in the chat is, what sort of little hints and reveals are we going to be getting on the 27th about upcoming anniversary card sets? Because I know they've kind of talked about some merch that they're doing, playmats, deck box kind of stuff. I've seen some previews of, but not much in the way of the actual cards that are going to be coming in a 30th anniversary set.
Okay, let's see what the chat comes up with. Yeah, 30 is it's a nice round number, and I don't know. It feels they're gonna do a lot of nostalgic stuff. I mean, I think that's like a no-brainer, right? Like they've already started releasing the merch. From what I saw, I think that was legit. The merch of the opening scene from Red and Blue with
the Nidorino and the Gengar, so tight.
So they're definitely going to be some strong nods to that. We've got, let's see what the chat's saying here. Manga alt arts. Yeah, getting serialized. I mean, that would be kind of wild. Blastoise, Charizard, Venusaur, clone, SIRs.
Oof,
that would be really cool. A shout to the movie.
Yeah, cool. The one they have like the markings. They're kind of like the original. They're huge, right? They kind of have like the original VMAX or a Gigantamax or whatever.
That would be wild. I actually am someone. Back in 2016, Pokemon Go came out, so the 10th anniversary of that is coming up, and over the years, I've been in and out of it. I started back in 2016, took some breaks, but I come back to it. I play with my kids now. I play with my family. They have some old phones that we tether our internet to, and they don't have actual plans. They're pretty young. But I realized recently that like they had maybe it was 5 years ago, they actually had the clone Charizard, Blastoise, Venusaur in the Pokemon Go game. So now I have like, oh my God, I can't believe I missed out on that. I hope they like bring those back in the game, and to see cards of them would be amazing too, because I don't believe they've ever gotten cards of those.
What I would really love is English, SIR variants of the original CD promos, artworks from Sugimori.
Ooh.
With the Blastoise, Venusaur, Charizard. Like, so we got the Venusaur obviously as a WotC promo in English, but if we could get all three full art texture chase card in a set, like, you better believe I'm going all the way in on that. All the way in.
I'm super basic and so easy to please. I'm very much a Kanto kid, but like I love celebrations. I know a lot of people didn't love the whole stamp and the 2-5 on the Pikachu's cheeks and whatever, but like they did the full art Pikachu, the extended art, the reimagination in a full art frame of the base set. I love Pikachu.
That one.
Give me that for Charizard. Give me that for Blastoise. Like give me the same iconic stance and all that stuff, and maybe go a little bit crazier with the background and extend the frame down. And I'm so easy to please. I think all of us are, realistically.
Yeah. I mean, these 20th anniversary promos that they did in the big collection boxes.
Oh yeah.
These are so tough, and I want some stuff kind of like that, you know. I don't know. I'm really excited about it, and I wouldn't mind if I know that that Celebrations and Generations both, like, there wasn't too much of a chase. Like, even for the top hits, the pull rates are pretty strong, and my guess is they'll probably do that. It's more of a collector friendly set, so you can kind of pull all the cool cards and not have to dump a truckload of money into it. But I wouldn't mind some top tier rarity, like give me something that's like legit hard to get. And they've been okay with doing that. Like some of these gold cards and stuff like that they've been doing in the mega generation are like legitimately very rare pack pulls as far as quantity of packs. So yeah, I would love some of that as well.
When you were talking about that, wasn't this card a 20th anniversary thing?
I think it was. I think that is a 2016.
Yeah, 2016. I mean, that's another like stuff like this. Yeah. I mean, though, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was in the illustration book, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's some sort of art book or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very cool card.
Yeah. All right, guys. That is our Hitmon topics. We are still in the tall grass, an hour and 10 minutes into our stream. Let's move on to.
Can I shout one thing for Pokemon Day? I have something exciting going on Pokemon Day. A little bit of self promo. Fanatics is one place that I primarily do a lot of my business. Fanatics Live. These two cards, PSA 10 English, these are being given away next Friday. So, yeah, these two cards.
That's English Lovebirds and Moonbryon.
Yeah.
So we're talking like $12,000 worth of slabs you're just giving away.
They're being given away. Shout out to Fanatics for that. That is not out of my own pocket. And then we're going to be breaking and giving away these boxes too. So we're giving away the PSA 10s. Hopefully we get really lucky. Hopefully we unearth some fresh PSA 10s to be graded. But yeah, Fanatics, they're calling it 30 for 30. $30,000 of giveaways for the 30th anniversary. It is going to be crazy. And I know how some people can feel about live streaming and rip and ships and all that stuff. I understand there's some, but this is no purchase necessary. This is like, if you're not doing anything else, click a button, enter a giveaway, and who knows? There might be a few hundred people in there. There might be 1,000 people in there. 1 in 1,000 odds at winning a $10,000 card. I mean, tune in.
I love it. Yeah, I gotta get my bot farm game up. I gotta get ready.
Hey, I don't know how bots work exactly, but make sure you run them through my affiliate link, just so we can both eat.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I'll pump the numbers. That's exciting. Very cool. Yeah,
very exciting.
What's the actual date of Pokemon Day? It's 27th. What day of the week is that?
Friday.
Friday. Okay. Well, yeah, I gotta do something cool too. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah, I think all the platforms everywhere are going to be like really dialing it up. And we talked about the Logan Paul Illustrator Golden Auction, and the Super Bowl just had the Mr. Beast Whatnot commercial and all that stuff going on. Or Mr. Beast commercial was something else, but pre Super Bowl, like earlier in the day, they had the big $1 million giveaway on Whatnot. So not quite $1 million giveaway, but I think Fanatics is holding its own there with a reasonable one.
Wow, that's a cool idea. That you've just inspired me, because I'm going to Collecticon Miami this coming weekend, and maybe I'll find some crazy thing that we'll give away on stream that same night. That'd be cool.
Nice.
There you go.
I love it.
Going head to head then.
No. I would never want to compete. I'll do it at like 3 a.m. or something. So I don't,
We'll be earlier in the day. Yeah, we'll be wrapped up before prime time even. We're like the appetizer for the evening of events, I guess they have.
Perfect.
I'll be asleep at 3 a.m., Jake, but my bot farm will be awake. So
yeah, perfect. Yeah, when all my giveaways go to Oyama's Burner 1995, then I'll know what happened.
Perfect. If y'all had 30 for 30 or Fanatics on your bingo cards, you can cross those off now.
Yeah, sorry, Dan, I'm not sending you that $1.70 anymore.
You're sending us $1.70.
Yeah.
There we go. I got my ad read in. There we go.
The giveaway's awesome, man. And we're always happy to have people plug their stuff. So let's talk about a Clefumble. So Clefumble, for those that are unfamiliar or need a reminder, is a little attempt at a play that didn't work out. Just something where we kind of took an L, and you do take a lot of L's in this. I mean, right now, current market, it's you almost have to try to take an L, but when you take enough shots, you will take one. So I'll go first because mine's not like super exciting. It's going to be the mildest one of the three, is my guess. So my Clefumbles, I bought this collection and a handful of months ago, and it had a lot of these like Chinese proxy fan made type cards in it and boxes, which I knew there were some of that, but I didn't look that closely at the spreadsheet. You know, it's like it's when you got 300 items, you're not auditing every individual item, every individual comp. You just sort of like, you know, you sort of vibe comp certain things.
Oh, what a cliffhanger.
Clefumbo was not plugging in the Ethernet cord. Sorry, Ricky.
I can still hear you guys when I disappear. So yeah, I do need to figure out the Ethernet cable situation. I don't know where I cut off. The collection had a bunch of like proxy cards, like Peruvian fake cards and Chinese cards and things like that. And so it turned out it had a lot. Like 10% of the value of this collection are these like fan art type things. So I'm selling them at a loss on eBay now.
10% of the value?
Yeah.
What's the value of a Chinese fan-made art card?
There were sales for a lot of these things, like these boxes at like $50. And there's like, there's like 20 boxes of this stuff.
That's awesome.
There goes the profit on the lot.
No, I mean, I did fine. I graded I'm already fine on it. And like it had some good sealed modern, like, you know, 151 UPCs that like popped up right after I bought it. So I'm honestly fine. So it's fine on the whole, but yeah, I am now just taking these cards these boxes we valued at $50 that I paid $35 for and selling them for $25 or whatever on eBay. Like, so it's mainly like a time thing. I was just being lazy about it. So if you're going to buy stuff, just be lazy.
Yeah. Plug your eBay. Johnny Deep Dish wants to scalp all your boxes.
Perfect. I actually just sold like one of the last ones of them. So I might not have anything up now. They were selling at $28, no problem. Not at $49.99 like I originally had. No one wanted them for $50, but they wanted them for $30. So it is just Oyama's trading though. If you do ever want to look, I usually just offload things there that are hard to sell at shows or on Instagram.
Yeah. I love it. I'll go next. Mine's pretty simple, and I'm like halfway sure that I've mentioned this before, but it just keeps getting worse. It just keeps adding salt to my wound as this card goes higher and higher and higher. So as most of you know, I graded a Gold Star Mewtwo in a PSA 10 almost exactly a year ago, and sold it at Collecticon Los Angeles like first weekend of March of last year for like somewhere around 9,000, and it just comped it like 53,000 on eBay, and it was like a 2 cert that was, you know, not great. So the card that I graded is like, it's very confidently close to $60,000 right now. It has a 10 cert with a swirl right on the tail. Graded it myself. I think I got upcharged like $200, you know? So anyways, there goes my 50 G's.
Have you used the proceeds from that though?
I don't want to talk about it. Well, I mean, I'm sure. Yeah. Flip here and made money there and your business is doing fine. But like, what about having a cool 60K card that I graded myself? What about that? So
I was just trying to help you feel better about it, Jake. Not that you somehow FOMO'd on just producing out of thin air like a median American salary on a single Pokemon.
I'm accepting zero consolation. Thanks, bud.
Yeah, I see that. I'll try another time.
That's actually a funny angle on like a Clefumble. I'll share mine in a second, but one thing that makes me think of is I was like chatting in Discord with some people while the Illustrator sale was going on. And somebody kind of brought up the point that like Logan's Illustrator only 3x'd. Like, think of all the things that have done so much more. Like you just talked about a card that 8x'd in a fraction of the time that Logan owned that Illustrator.
Totally.
So like what a Clefumble of him to buy something that only 3x'd, significantly more of a Clefumble. I guess he 3x'd a card like this minus 50%, if you owned one of those. But
I love that. Yeah, put that same 50 million into Ancient Origins boxes.
5 million. But yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 5 million.
Yeah.
Like, I can't say anything else because some things did go down, but put it into a lot of other things, and now you're 10xing, you're 20xing, you're 50xing. put it into something like this, and you're doing significantly better. But yeah, one of my Clefumbles is going to be kind of a broad thing. I figured it would kind of fit the theme of the night, so I went with it. I've done much of what Jake just mentioned. I sold so many things like too soon. To what Ricky said though, like I put him into something else. I sold a PSA 9 Gold Star set in March of 2020 for $13,000. Every PSA 9 for 13 grand. But that same month, I bought a #1 Pikachu trophy card for $20,000 with all the festivals. But yeah, my Clefumble that I'll go with tonight, and I'm sure I'm doing it as we speak with some inventory with some cards, was last boom, not selling certain things. Again, everyone, different life, different personal finances, different cash flow, different goals. But there were cards that I just like stubbornly held. I remember, and here's one that I'll tie it specific and then I'll stay kind of broad too, to cover both. But like I turned down, people might know the Pokemon Network, the Charizard onesie guy at all the shows. And he was in my DMs in 2020, 2021, offering $50,000 for a PSA 9 base for a Charizard. And had I taken it then, like it is up from what it was then, it's up now. I want to say they're like 60, 65. So they're up a little bit, not much. But what did I do? I don't own it today. I said no, and I was stubborn, and I'm like, this could be $100,000 card someday. And it likely will be in the distant enough future. But I ended up auctioning it a couple years ago, and I got like 25 grand. I lost half the money. All things considered, I had a multi-6-figure Pokemon card inventory. I mean, towards 7-figure Pokemon card inventory at the time. It wasn't a huge deal. But one thing that I know some people did do back then, and I know some people will do it today, everyone's finances are different. Some people have the ability to pay off their student loans, to buy a new, more reliable car for their family, to get to and from their jobs and to and from whatever they need, to pay off their houses, to have a wedding, whatever it may be. There's going to be a lot of people holding too long, like I have so many times. I've been here 12 years. I've sold more than $10 million worth of things. I've held things too long. I've sold things too soon, every angle. But like, I think that's the most timely one to say. And it's a scary thing to say, I know, because just as easily as you might not sell something for 10 grand today, and it might be 5 grand in 3 years, it also might be 50 grand in that question of if. So it's not like I'm not trying to talk people into selling things, but try to be honest with yourself, be honest with like the utility that money can provide potentially. And if life-changing money is staring you in the face and finances are kind of tight, and some of these cards that like maybe you bought Poncho Mario, full art Poncho Mario 10 years ago was $50 on eBay. It was 50, 60, 70 bucks. It's $20,000 now for certain people in certain situations. That is life-changing money. It could have been a gift 10 years ago. So like, just take stock of your situation, take stock of your collection, inventory, whatever you want to call it. And just at least consider, because though I don't like fully actually regret it and all the things that people say, everything I did led me to where I am today. So I don't necessarily not regret selling it, but there was a lot more optimization to be had. You're never going to time the tops perfectly. You're never going to time the bottoms perfectly. But sometimes things are more obvious than others. And yeah, that's my whole rant on a Clefumble.
I love it. A Clefumble turned into an orang guru. teaching the masses a great lesson. Thank you.
I love your punny segment names. I love them so much. They're so good.
we should write down something Oran Guru. We should. That could be that's a segment name somewhere in there.
Yes.
That's
yeah.
good.
Let me ponder on that.
Yeah.
Like
no,
that.
but then Jake said the same thing a bunch of times on this stream. Like, sometimes take profits. Like we've said that every other stream since we started this live. So yeah.
I had I was on a stream last night and selling some really cool vintage singles, and one of the comments in the stream was like, dude, how can you bring yourself to sell this stuff? And I'm just like, you got to sell something. If like you can't just perpetually amass Pokemon cards. You do have to sell something sometime, because unfortunately The IRS does not accept Metagross EX cards, and neither does the light bill or the bank. You gotta turn that profit and emotionally detached to a certain degree from some things sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
They should accept Metagross EX.
I do. Right. Like I'm kind of like Dan's dad. If I fix your truck, you can pay me in booster boxes.
There we go.
Yep. Love it. All right, guys. Should we move on? Last piece of our tall grass, the Gyarados of reality.
Wow. The grass is tall this week. Let's do it.
Tall grass.
Okay, maybe I'll lead this one out.
Sure.
So it actually dovetails pretty well with what Dan was saying there, which is we are in a boom, and I want to highlight specifically a vintage boom of these low pop cards. We saw incredible gains last year, and then we are just like, it's still for so many cards reaching all-time high auction values like every other week. We're seeing that. And for us that own a handful of these, obviously that feels great when your card comp's really high. But the advice for today is, again, to don't fall in love with the upward and to the right trajectory. Dan has a $25,000 hole in his pocket as proof that sometimes you need to sell your Charizard when it is reaching tip-top value. And just remember that in a strong market, you've got this low pop factor of your cards that is making them more desirable. But the fact that they're low pop means that, and I know Zach from Z&G said something on a video recently about thinly traded markets, right? Things that are not trading hands frequently. When times are not as good, the drop off for those things is significant. It can move down just as fast and with as much volatility as it went up, because if the right person isn't watching the auction, then the card that sold for $20K last week could very easily sell for 16 or 13 this week. And I know that Dan has been the sage of warning people about falling in love with comp culture. But we do kind of live in that era right now, especially at these live card shows. Like if there's a card that just comped for $18,000 and the trajectory's been up and to the right for the last few months, there is no one in that room who is willing to sell the card for less than 18. In fact, many of them are going to say, I'm not selling it for less than 20, because for all I know, the next comp's going to be at 25 or 30. And I don't want to be the guy who's wearing the dunce hat in the corner. So when the market's strong and things are trending upwards, thinly traded markets can really play in your favor. When things are not as strong, which they could be at any time, things could flip at any time. Markets are fickle. Demand is fickle. Your thinly traded, low pop, rare, desirable item could fall off a cliff, and you could lose out on what could have been a really fabulous amount of value.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have nothing to add to
that? No, I think that was very good. I definitely agree. Know what your goals are, know how you're interacting with this space. It's tough. It's impossible, really. You'll never time the tops perfectly. You'll never time the bottoms perfectly. But as long as you're making like value trades in and out of the hobby, again, you're looking at like a new car, you're looking at like a crazy vacation, you're looking at financial stability, security, whatever. Like know what your goals are and do things that bring you towards them. I think the regret tends to be a lot higher if and when you're just kind of willy-nilly doing everything and getting caught up in the hype too, because and a lot of people too, like to be fair to myself 5 years ago, that 50K or whatever, that was like less than a week-long span. There were probably only 10-ish people that capitalized on that number. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll mentally project out like the market cap. Oh, hey, it was a $50,000 card. Pop was X amount. And here's the market cap. Not every card can inherently like actually transact at whatever that top number is, whether it's a local maximum or an absolute maximum. So yeah, give yourself grace, do the best you can do. And I guess that's what we're all out here doing, right?
And have fun. I'm constantly like all day long. I just think about Pokemon cards and how much fun I'm having. So, I mean, at the end of the day, that's but yeah, it's you still got to be smart, especially in the thinly traded, which the thinly traded markets are particularly the low pop, high end vintage stuff right now, because it'll be months before there's a public sale and it'll jump 2x. I was looking at Dark Dragonite Legendary Reverse PSA 9 last night, and it sold for $1,200 like 2 weeks ago, and then like $1,400, and then $1,600, and it's at like 29 or something now.
Yeah, it's because the 10 just comped, Ricky. That's what happened. The 10 comped for like 26,000, and then everyone's like, "Oh, the 9 has to follow," because that's the herd mentality of it's all moving up this way. And so, and I'm seeing the same on a lot of these e-readers. I mean, I just had comps on big Dragonite, Charizard cards, and then all the 9s have to move. They have to move, right? It's fascinating right now.
Yeah, it is. Well, I think that's a beautiful transition into our main topic of the day. What do you think, guys? Should we exit the tall grass? It's cleared out now. Maybe there's a beach in front of us, and there's a big celebration happening because we are in a Pokemon boom. But there's maybe an undertone of uneasiness that the people on the beach here feel as they're fishing for Magikarps, which is, how does this one compare to the past ones? And particularly Dan, we've invited Dan in large part because Dan was around and very actively conducting business in 2020, which was one of the recent more, funky booms. This one's a little bit different, but how is it different? I think we should talk through that for at least an hour, probably.
Yeah.
I think, sorry, really quick, just another intro to this topic. One of the main reasons why I wanted to have Dan on today is because he's someone who was doing business at a high level around the boom last time, right? So maybe just a quick synopsis, Dan. Let us know when you I know you went full time. What is it, like 5 years ago or so? But give us a quick play-by-play of your involvement and experience buying, selling, trading 5-6 years ago, and why that gives some context for going through a new boom now.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier I started in 2014, so a very quick first 6 years. It was like steady tailwind. The hobby grew quite a bit between 2014 and 2020. There was a boom, slightly bubblish around certain things in 2016, but anyways, like things were generally just growth from 2014 to 2020. Then, as people know, 2020 happened, and the boom kind of spread between 2020 and 2021. There were a lot of factors. There was the Logan Paul booster box break. There was the pandemic, all the things that we'll get into. But what was I doing at the time? So 2020, I was still full-time as an engineer, and I actually had my second child in that year. It was a crazy year. I moved in late 2019, so I was still getting settled into a new family situation, new home, all that stuff, new job, and then simultaneously, like the Pokemon card market started booming. From 2014 to 2020, I amassed a 6-figure collection / inventory. I was more like in between shades of gray between business and collector at the time. And 2020 hit and everything just went crazy. 2021, July of 2021 is when I separated from my job. So that just kind of frames you like where I was at. I was probably every year between 2014 and 2020, I was probably putting in 500 to 1,000 hours a year minimum. There might have been a couple of years where I eked out almost full-time on top of my full-time job, 1,500 plus hours. And then every year since 2021, I've been putting in a full 2,000, 2,500 hours or so. So yeah, that's where I was at personally.
Nice.
I love that. And so you've seen how the market has ebbed and flowed, right? And not only for, vintage, but also like what modern was doing back then versus what modern is doing now, right? So that's
Yep.
great context. The graded card market, the demand for PSA, some of the differences that we're going to go over today. Last time there was a boom, there was also global shutdowns and there were supply chain issues. And so demand was high, but also supply was low. Now we've got institutional money, there's live streaming. So there's some things that we want to talk about here that are maybe differences between what was going on then and what's going on now. But I also don't want to shy away from those differences potentially being bullish and bearish, right? So some of these differences are would seem to be very bullish for us now. Maybe we double click really quickly on live streaming. So I know that's a huge part of your business. Maybe what is it like? Let me guess, Dan. Is that like 90% of the revenue you're going to bring in is through your live streaming channels this year?
I did just finish my taxes, so I do have a pretty decent handle on where it stands. Not quite that high. It's a little bit over 50% of the total gross revenue. As far as profit wise, so I numbers are kind of big that I move through consignment. My margin is very tiny on consignment.
Right.
So it is only slightly over half of my gross revenue, but it probably is towards 70%, maybe 75% of my like net profit.
Yeah.
That's a big complicated picture with a lot of different segments, but yeah, live streaming is integral part of my operation. October of 2024 is when we started our venture on Fanatics Live, the one that I talked about earlier, the big Pokemon Day thing. Shout out to PK and Ponga, my two Fanatics guys. But that is one major difference. So I actually have some specific memories. Some friends in the space, they were live streaming very early on Whatnot. Some people may not know that. Maybe they weren't there then or whatever, but Whatnot did exist. 2020, 2021, somewhere in there during the shutdowns, I tuned into a Pokemon Radar box break. I tuned into a couple different events and I created my account then. I know I had a call with, I don't sell on Whatnot currently, but I've had a call with them before and they're like, oh, wow, your account is like one of the earlier ones. Like you registered quite early on. And so, yeah, seeing what Whatnot was then, what it's turned into now. eBay Live is a new thing. I know you have interactions with Drip and Fanatics Live is there. It is so much more ubiquitous. And let me one bit of data that I'm compiling for myself to use in the future in some different ways. Every few days I go into Whatnot, I go into eBay, Fanatics, and Drip, and I take a count on how many people are there in all the live streams combined. I think that will be a really cool thing to plot over time. I'm sure internally each one of those companies has their own numbers. I wish I had this data going back 5 years, but Whatnot, the other night when I tuned in, it was February 13th at 9:30 p.m. 20,000 combined people between Whatnot, eBay, Fanatics, and Drip. And Whatnot was 19,000 of those. 19,000 of the 20,000 people were on Whatnot, followed by eBay, Fanatics, and Drip in that order. And I wish I knew the numbers, but it might have been 190 6 years ago. It might have been a couple hundred people. So live streams have become very ubiquitous. Even if you go to conventions or whatever, there's a lot of people kind of like browsing the floor and all that stuff, like buying for shows. And another angle that I'm sure we'll touch on in a little bit is these digital mystery packs. Those are two, not brand new, as I mentioned, Whatnot that exists back then, but it is 100 times larger at minimum. It is. It cannot be understated how much larger. Courtyard.io was one of the first mystery packs too. I guess I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but I think that did exist 2020, 2021, but that has become so much more ubiquitous as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like our general consensus here that the advent or at least popularization of live streaming, selling packs for rip and ship, or singles auctions, or I do a lot of claim sales, for example. Like it it's incredibly, it's a bullish signal just because it's kind of a downstream effect of the amount of demand and the access that people have to getting cards on demand at all times. You could go onto TikTok or any of these platforms at any time and tune into a live stream and open packs at any hour of the day or night. And people are choosing to do that. And that was not anywhere near as common 5-6 years ago. And the reason that we're saying that that's bullish is, at least the simple answer in my mind, is when there's that much more liquidity. And I know that I use this term with Ricky sometimes, but like the GDP of Pokemon cards and what's being transacted in a given day is so much higher. It's so much harder to erase, when if something comes and wipes that out to a certain degree, the larger that GDP is, the more significant a factor it has to be to wipe it out. It can't just be like some sentiment thing with PSA that like wipes out demand for the hobby. It can't just be a couple of bad sets get released in a row. It has to be something like some perfect storm of things that would really cause a nosedive, in my opinion, compared to what happened 5 years ago. And live streaming, again, example of that bullishness. Anything else to add on there, Ricky or Dan?
I guess I don't have anything to add. It's almost like a question for Dan. Is like how do you track? I guess I know you don't have like Whatnot's data. I'm curious how this is growing, because like I guess one of the things I think about is how far can it go? Sort of like what's the ceiling on it? Like, is there a place where it just kind of plateaus and there's just like the sort of total addressable market of buying on these streams is capped at some certain amount of people, or is it like it's just been doubling every 6 months and like no end in sight? Like that's I might do my first stream sale on YouTube in a week, plug for that, but I'm very new to that. Like I haven't bought on that sort of platform really, other than I've played around with Jake's stuff before, bought a mystery pack once, but beyond that, like it's a very new space for me. So like someone like you who does so much of it, like what's your take on the pace that it's growing and like what the limit feels like?
That's a very unfortunate answer that I have to give you here. Is I only just started this a week ago. I kick myself for not having done that. If I had just done it once a week, once a month over the past 5 years, how interesting and valuable that information would be. The old saying is the best time to plant the tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So I found myself last week. It's like, hey, I have a Google Doc called Whatnot eBay Fanatics Drip Viewership. And I'm going to have a Google Calendar alert to at least once a week. I'm going to go in and I'm going to do it. So I wish, and that'll be interesting because it'll be like, we're going to go through cycles. We're going to go through ebbs and flows. And as long as I stick with it, 5-10 years from now, I will have a fair bit of data. And Whatnot has it, and Fanatics has it. It would be very hard to pry from them. Maybe you can find it in some slide decks that they show to investors, but they're all private companies, so that's difficult. I guess except eBay. eBay, maybe we could glean some things from 10K filings over the years or whatever. But so unsatisfactory answer there.
No, that's
that
okay.
I don't have enough data.
I was wondering if maybe they publish information on this. So like using Whatnot, that I haven't read that. I was just skimming it really quick. Live shopping market has reached an estimated 22 billion across North America and Europe, which this already has been big in Asia for a while, right?
Yes.
Like, this is just hitting sort of Western audiences. Whatnot has 60% market share. Sellers drove $8 billion in live sales on Whatnot, more than double the year before. There you go. That's the kind of information. And 1 in 8 Whatnot sellers is now full-time, up 20% year over year.
Wow.
So there you go. But this is really the more than doubling. This like 2.5x. It's sort of like how many more times will it like 2.3x? That's the piece that I was that's I don't know. I don't know what the limit looks like on that.
No idea, but yeah, a very good question for sure.
I know. Like for example, like Gary Vaynerchuk is such like a huge proponent and is very bullish about the future of live selling. He talks about it quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the people that are in the know about, the next big thing, these people are are thinking that live streaming is only getting bigger. And you know, with that GDP number of Pokemon cards, you know what I'm saying, like being so intrinsically tied to live selling, that's a continued bullish signal for me. And right along those lines in our list here is vending and card shows. I know you and I, Ricky, we had a stream like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago where we talked about is the state of the card show market, like, is that sustainable? Is this a new norm as far as like how many shows there are around the country, how big these shows are getting? And I was of the opinion last year that like that 2026 was going to be a slower year for shows than 2025. And so far I'm just flat out wrong. I mean, Collecticon, I think they almost doubled the number of shows they're doing. It's at least
20,
like a 30 or 40%
they have
increase.
24. I think they had 18 last year. So yeah.
Yeah. So they're in a whole bunch of new cities. And then you've got, I mean, I'm on the West Coast. I know you are too, Ricky. We got Front Row Card Show has expanded to new cities. They're now going to the East Coast. We've got more card parties, obviously, and then all these other big shows, like they are expanding and aggressively, if anything. Most of the Collecticons are like 1,000 tables or more. You cannot possibly see all of the vendors in 2 days if you want to actually see what their inventory is. It's too big. There's so much going on, and that's just another side of the Pokemon card transaction market. So many dollars and items are changing hands at these shows, guys. It's like, and the other piece here that we talk about, which is the institutional money. A lot of the institutional money coming in on trading cards is with these repackers that are doing mystery packs. Well, almost every single one of those organizations has one or many booths set up at all of these big shows and are buying millions of dollars almost every week in graded cards, and some of them are doing singles as well. Like it's astounding liquidity right now that got infused into the market and is working. Like that infusion of an institutional money with new business arms and revenue strategies, it is working. People are clicking that button for the pull game of the mystery pack. And
they clicking it. They be clicking it.
They be clicking.
So
like, again, we're talking about the things that are different from 5 years ago that are incredibly bullish. Any opinions on card shows or these institutional buyers and mystery pack organizations, guys?
Yeah, it's like the whole addressable market, as you said, it's just risen. It's risen exponentially. We've added a zero across the board. It's absolutely insane. Pokemon back then was printing. I don't want to say the wrong number here. I know it's all out there. Let me see if I can pull it up really quickly. But Pokemon then was printing a few billion cards a year, and now they're printing 12 billion cards a year, and we don't know the number yet through fiscal March. We'll find out in June. Usually is when we get that data. But one thing that we do know is Pokemon additionally is adding over 1 million square feet to their production capabilities of card and card adjacent things, packaging cards. I know that there's been some conversation around what exactly it is, but so it's like PSA is grading 10 times the amount of cards a month. The amount of shows happening every week, every month, every whatever duration you want to go is up 10 times. The amount of cards being printed, it's across the board. The hobby is just so much more bigger. And in spite of that, you have your Moonbreons being at record high numbers. You have some of the older cards being at record high numbers. You have a lot of these vintage cards, the Illustrator being the most valuable trading card of all time, not just Pokemon. It's this boom is in some ways similar, but in so many ways, it's so much bigger. It's so much more real because everything has just risen. That's not to say it couldn't wane over some time, but when all these companies have so much money on the line over it, we probably don't like to admit how effective marketing is. And I think a lot of us probably would downplay the effect that marketing has on us. But it is truly a very powerful machine. Again, very fickle demand. Mr. Beast, whatnot, the whole Super Bowl thing, like all the things that are happening, it drives our desire to get in on the action. So yeah.
Can I add one more piece here?
Absolutely.
Like obviously we're talking about so much about the cards and the items and their buying and selling, but like, to be honest, because this market is, in collectibles, like you mentioned earlier, like these are items that do not have intrinsic value. The only way that you're going to get somebody into buying them is through a little bit of marketing and groupthink. And what is the fuel for marketing and groupthink? It's social media. And that's another huge difference from last time. Like, obviously there were long form creators back then, and then there's long form creators now. I would say that it's easily 10 times more views on Pokemon long form now than there were then. But there's also this short form piece. People like Coop and Beard Dad and all these other people who have grown millions of followers in like the last 16 months. All from short form content, almost all from short form content. So we've got these platforms that are grabbing attention at record rates, talking about collecting cards, being a collector, going to card shows, buying, selling, trading, all that kind of stuff. It's at your fingertips every second. Like Ricky, you and I talk about, going full time in Pokemon, and some of the risks and things like that. But one thing that maybe you and I don't talk enough about is how 5-6 years ago, when Dan went full time, it was probably way more risky back then, just because like there wasn't the sheer mountain of available information and network opportunities through social media that there are now. It's absolutely insane how much at the click of a button you could open your phone right now and just be inundated with content about cards and collecting, and new cards that you've never seen, and new shows you've never heard of, and new content creators that are doing cool things that you might be interested in. That is those are capitalizing on the amount of time people are spending in their free time and their hobby time. I would venture to guess that the number of people who are like down bad with Pokemon is so much higher now, because they can get content and be entertained in a Pokemon adjacent piece of content every second of every day.
100%, man. I hear it at shows or in comments all the time. Like, oh, this is my first show, or I just went to my first show and I got I learned about it through the content. I got the confidence to go by watching Jake and Ricky and Bulbasaur. And yeah, man, it's a huge factor that I would imagine wasn't there then. But Dan, maybe you can attest to that. Like, the information availability, the content, like how different does that feel today versus 2020, 2021?
It's significantly easier. You had to be down in the trenches more. You had to be in the very tall grass. You had to be very far out in the weeds to find E4, to find all these different repositories of information. And one thing that I'll add too, like the information accessibility, the ability to have alt, or to have card ladder, or to have all these different, and we had some tools years ago, Pokemon Price, rest in peace to some of the old pricing tools and websites that I used to love that no longer exist. But it was just a lot harder to find. And adding to it, like the liquidity, being able to go and being able to not have a name, not have a brand, not have a face in the space. And you can get the same rates on eBay that I can. You can consign with Z&G Emporium just like I can. You can consign with DC Sports just like I can. So, or you can go to a show. You can go to 5 years ago, you'd have to search around. You'd have to find one. These days, it's like I live in the middle of nowhere, and there's shows going on every other week, like local to me. So you can just go and you can get bought out at 80% cash in hand, no risk, 75, 80, whatever it is. Or you can consign for these 90, 95% rates. it's crazy the amount of liquidity. In some ways, sure, people will lament like, oh, I wasn't around when Dan was buying Scream sets. I used to buy sets of Eevee, Psyduck, and Rowlet, all three for $20 on Buy. But you know what? I wasn't selling the 9s for $1,000 or whatever they are now. I was selling 10s for $40 or $50. So people lament like, oh, the prices were so low, but so was the liquidity. I could sell 5 of these today for 90% of market without even a thought. And 10 years ago, I guess not 10 years ago, 2018, 8 years ago, you'd have to wait. You'd have to do a buy it now. If you did an auction, you'd get wrecked. You'd have to do a buy it now and then patiently wait for the buyer to come to you and find you. You might sell a couple a month, and you might move the market. If you did a couple auctions, you drop the market 20% yourself. These days I buy them sometimes, and sometimes I sell them. You can sell 100 PSA 10s of a Burger Chew in bulk to some repacker, to some whatever, and the market doesn't even know it happened. It's crazy these days.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that idea of the market didn't even know it happened, because it's not just that card didn't experience price movement, but because there's so many other items, other SKUs, cards, sealed items that are sponging up value. Like it, it's like back in the day, like, oh man, if you sold a bunch of Ford stock, then that would have an impact on the market or on the index generally. But like, that's just no longer the case. It's so big. It's almost too big to fail, as they say. But there's also some things that are the same. So some things that are a little scary, some things that we noticed are almost identical that kind of seemed like top signals at the time in 2021, right prior to the big crash. We were seeing some of like the cards and the items that are peaking right now are the exact ones that peaked and then crashed later that year, 5 years ago or so. Tell us a little bit, Dan, about first edition Jungle Pikachu and Jungle Eevee and Shadowless Charizards and stuff, and what those were doing and how long it's taken for those to recover, for example, to where we are now.
Yeah, some of them, as I mentioned, some of them fully haven't recovered, and some of them were more in the weeds. Some of them were more like you had to, but PSA 9 base unlimited Charizard is a very not relative to a Burger Chew, but like it's a relatively high pop card. It's a relatively ubiquitous card. It's always been around, and but that peaked at $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. I don't remember exactly where it peaked at exactly. I know I did some private sales. Today's price, tomorrow's discount. Add 20% to the last sale, but yeah, I don't know where that one's at. I don't think that one's back to 3K, is it? I don't think it's 50% of what it peaked at last time around. But I know, again, shout out to James, ENG Emporium. He's a close friend. He sold like an energy card from XY Evolutions for $300 something recently. He sold a lot of PSA 10 Jungle first edition cards in the hundreds of dollars. These cards that, like, there's a lot of them out there. There's still Jungle box breaks happening all the time. Sure, the boxes are very expensive now, but I forget the math on it. There's only 64 cards in the set. The set is very small. The print quality is relatively high on the non-hollows. I know the hollows are hard to grade, but every time you do a Jungle box break, you're unearthing like 12 more of every common, or whatever the exact number is. So yeah, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. There was a big Logan Paul booster box break, and we just had one. I remember a year ago, and I guess I was cautioning a little bit early, and maybe we're still way too early. But Vivid Voltage, the G word. I still shudder at the thought of it. What's happening with Destined Rivals kind of scares me. But 5 years ago, there were people guaranteeing that Vivid Voltage was too good. It was too strong. It was the best set of all time, because every new set is the best set of all time. There were people that are still around today. A lot of them still aren't around today, guaranteeing, not saying for XYZ reasons, I think that Destined Rivals won't go below XY, whatever price. They were guaranteeing that Vivid Voltage could not go below 200. And it did significant, and maybe a year ago, I was kind of saying like surging feels the same. You got a Pikachu on the ETB, just like you have a Vivid. Hasn't panned out yet. I think there's still time for it to pan out. But at the end of the day, it's like, know your risks, know your downside. You can't guarantee anything in this space. You don't control any aspect of it. Fickle consumer demand. The market will get really caught up in these segments of time where like there's one fundamental truth. And I've been through in 12 years, I've been through so many fundamental truths that were just foundational. Everyone agreed on it. It was just like the way things were. And today, they don't reprint booster boxes. They just don't. It's been over a year. We haven't seen them. They're just done with it. Destined Rivals to 600. Destined Rivals to 2,000. They don't reprint booster boxes anymore. They don't until they do. And 2 years ago, 4 years ago, again, my memory's not amazing, but like there was a season, a multi-year season, where they did not reprint ETBs. And ETBs were the investment. And another friend in the space, like shout out to Alex Nostalgianomics, very investment-minded content. And a few years ago, he like made videos about, hey, ETBs are kind of like a decent play. And he wasn't like throwing around the guarantee word or anything. I think he's very good at like talking about risks and all that. But for a time, like ETBs were the way, or 3-pack blisters were the way, and because certain things didn't get reprints until things changed. And you just need to be open to knowing that you don't have control, unless maybe you know somebody who works at Millennium, maybe you have some kind of insider information going on that I don't have access to. As much as it's not fun to think about, I think some of that does go on in the space, but that goes on with stocks and every kind of market. But yeah, like just be aware that what does Rudy say? The trend is your friend until the end, around the bend, whatever he says. Like it is a certain way until it isn't, and you have no control over when that will stop being the case.
Yeah, I mean, I love that perspective, but I think that some people look at the risk that go along with, oh well, it's as simple as Pokemon changing their production strategy, and then all of your investment ideas and the truths that it was based on are going to collapse. But at the end of the day, like, that doesn't necessarily make Pokemon or collectibles inherently more risky than other things that you could possibly put as stores of value, because the fundamentals of other industries change as well. I was thinking about the main market movers of the S&P as they existed 20 years ago or 50 years ago, and how every 10, 20 years, it seems like the main 5, 10 companies are totally recycled, totally different. When I was in high school and getting into college, it was all about the FANG stocks. And if you weren't invested in those, then you weren't experiencing gains in the market. And maybe it's more towards AI and other things now, and who knows what the actual front runners are going to be 10, 20 years from now. In the past, it was probably manufacturing and other industrial things. And that has totally gone the way of the dodo bird here in the United States. And the same thing can happen in Pokemon, which is why if you are trying to get like seriously capitally invested, you probably do need to be the kind of person that is keeping your ear to the ground and trying to figure out where the winds are blowing, and being the kind of person who is tuning into streams like this, or going to shows and networking with other buyers and sellers and traders all across the country. That is probably what keeps you more protected than anything. It's not necessarily a specific play. It's all of the tiny adjustments and the tiny experiments that you make over the course of the year and many years that are going to not guarantee that you have success, but are going to highly increase the likelihood. Because like I mentioned earlier, I personally believe that trading card collectibles have reached that terminal velocity, and they are now a store of value that is going to be widely accepted. But that doesn't mean every tiny SKU and item within the industry is a safe bet. forever. And the only way to try to make educated guesses and bets and speculations that are going to continue to pay you dividends is going to be to pay attention to what's going on and be aware of the changes and try to estimate what might happen because of those changes. So maybe that kind of leads us into, that was kind of a takeaway conclusion for me. What are some conclusions or takeaways? We've talked about what's different, lots of very bullish signals. We've talked about what's the same. Dan shed some light on some of the, I guess, the rhetoric that was going on back then, things people believed that ended up not being true. I know that maybe we've said it on this podcast before, that famous investment quote that people use. I think they might attribute it to, I don't even remember, but they say it's not what you believe that is going to kill you. It's what you believe that just ain't so. You know, it's the things that you are really relying on that aren't forever true that are going to really kill your ability to have success in the future. I know I worded that poorly, but what are some of the other conclusions, takeaways you guys have for the people here?
So obviously I wasn't around for it. So I've been quieter this discussion because I'm just I'm at school like everyone else is. You know, I love learning this sort of. I described it as like being a historian of that stuff. I love to go back and watch SM Pratt 2022 wrap up. Like I love watching those sorts of videos to teach myself this. I think the things that are similar that are a little concerning are things like Logan Paul and the euphoric rhetoric and the same cards making the jumps, to your point, Jake, like not the self-cleansing S&P 500, right? This is more like if the FANG stocks all came back as the top thing, you know, after like a crash and whatever. PSA, you know, like the turnaround time's getting longer. But I think 2020 looked so manufactured, right? Like the interest wasn't as real. The things like the live streaming, the institutional money, the card shows, the content that are holding it up this time are so different and so much more organic. And so while I wasn't there in 2020 to experience it, when I look at those things, when I listen to people like Dan, that's a thing that I take away is like, there are some things on the surface that look the same, but I think beneath the tip of the iceberg, it's very different than it was in 2020. At least that's how it appears to me.
Yeah. One thing that I'll add too is kind of like a takeaway. Again, same arena, different games. The game that I'm playing in this season of my interaction with Pokemon is I am like the sourcer for my guys on Fanatics, and I have the eBay live streams running too. I need to have everything in stock all the time. Like I don't generally agree with the prices of Destined Rivals and certain things. I think they're kind of high, and I think they might come down. But I still need to interact with them. I still need to have them. And generally speaking, for the 12 years that I've been around, Destined Rivals is an exception. Destined Rivals is exceptional. I think it's a great set, but I think it is an exception. Historically speaking, waiting like a year after a set comes out, it's not always going to be right. Again, you're never going to time all the tops, all the bottoms. But thinking back, if you waited, I got back in 2014 on Phantom Forces. If you bought every set a year out, and maybe don't have the rule be so hard and so fast. Maybe it doesn't have to be a year out, but a year-ish, by vibes, by feel. You almost always were getting the best price. I think people get so caught up in getting everything perfectly right. So it's like if you're an investor, if you're a collector, whatever, waiting to time your entry. And let's use like Prismatic Evolutions, another very popular set, another very one that's very expensive, but it came out opening week and it was like $14 a pack. And I had some people kind of like reach out to me, some friends from high school, some friends local to me, and they're like, man, I kind of want this newest, latest, greatest set. And it's like, yeah, everyone wants it right now. It's hot. Everyone is talking about it. And I said, I don't know for sure, not financial advice, no guarantees, but I generally think the spotlight will fall off it. I think it will be cheaper in the time to come. Will it ever get to MSRP? We still don't know. Every set Surging Sparks has at some point in the history, but in the coming years, we might find that like that trend is finally bucked. But yeah, look at every set and they're all cheaper, prismatic included, a year after release. I think there's still chances that it goes, but yeah, the hype will always be with the latest and greatest set. But if you kind of savvy investor, or if you're interacting in a collecting way, doing it on your own time, on your own terms, will often prove fruitful. But you're going to have your destined rivals. And another thing that's been kind of like an ongoing trend, even 10 years ago, this was a thing, because I remember doing it with the Mega Evolutions chart, the Mega Charizard from Evolutions. I sold one of the first ones on eBay. One of the things that has always been a thing is like the first to market plays, they sell up here, the impatience premium, people pay this price, and then they go down over time, generally speaking. Eventually, after a year, after a couple of years, once the set goes out of print, hobby grows, they tend to drift up over time. But usually the cheapest point in there is somewhere around a year or two later. Moonbryon being one of the exceptions. Moonbryon is one of the rare ones that kind of went down, and then it's just been up largely since. So kind of said little without, I said a lot while saying very little, I think. But have a budget, know what your goals are, all those same things that I've been saying the whole live stream.
Yeah, I'm gonna really agree with what Ricky said, and obviously I espouse those same things as far as like time frame and what you're buying, Dan, for sure. That in general, the marketplace of people is different, and so it has to be different than it was before. But some of the fundamentals that got people interested back then are the same ones that get people interested now. And those things are rarity, exclusivity, beautiful artwork. Dan brought up a really good one, which is recency bias. Those fundamentals, those are inherent to human behavior and not inherent to Pokemon. And the people that tend to be really good investors and really good business people are those that understand other people and the way that they're probably going to behave. And they make bets and they invest time and money into the things that people are likely going to do, likely going to like. And I think one of the reasons why we always come back to collectors tend to do well over the long term is because collectors buy cool things that they like, and they probably share that interest in those items with many other people. Charizard is valuable because lots of people think Charizard is cool. And so if you want to play the safest game, like we always say, then just pick up things that you really like. And in the short term, if there's price oscillations, you're not going to be too worried because you really like your items. And in the long term, there's a good chance that there's a lot of people just like you who like your stuff too. And it's going to go up in value and you're going to be okay. But on the same coin, just make sure that your risk tolerance is in relationship to your actual lifestyle. And just because we're booming doesn't mean that you need a $250,000 business loan. Maybe you do if you're Dan, because he's got crazy opportunities and sales channels, but not everyone's in that situation. So know your risk, know your responsibilities, make wise choices. But for me here, market's booming. I've never liked Pokemon more than I do now. And we're going to, I think, 38 out-of-state card shows this year. So it's because we're taking advantage of how fun it is right now. And I hope all of you guys do the same. And best of luck to all of you on that.
I love that. I know you pretty much tied a bow on it, but I want to talk on one thing that you said before about social media and this idea that, like, it's this cognitive bias called mimetic desire. So it's this annoying thing that humans do. I wish I didn't do it, but we're all susceptible to it, where it's like we see someone else have something and we kind of want it. You see a cool guy on TV, you're like, what are those sunglasses? I want to be cool like that cool guy. Like, you wish you weren't susceptible to that. Dan talked about marketing marketing's pretty powerful partly for these kinds of same reasons. I still enjoy wristwatches, but I was never more into wristwatches than when I was going into the office and my peers were also into wristwatches. And right now I work from home. Like I don't care as much about watches as much as I hate to admit it. I'm still fascinated with them. But a huge part of getting a new watch was to go into the office and be like, check out my new watch. And then the other guy would be like, this is my new watch too. And like the social media piece, the content piece, like exactly what you said, Jake, the huge difference in social media, the sort of social, the tribal acceptance and validation that we get as humans when we are part of something, and the dopamine of, I got this thing, check it out, and someone goes, that's a cool thing you got. If we didn't have that and we were just sitting at home, this would not be as big. So the social media piece and there's so much influence of that we can't understate as well. And when people see you or me or Dan or anyone having that fun that you were describing, it's an invitation for them to have that fun with us too.
Yeah. Great point. And a perfect example of this is the card show scene, right? Like there's a reason that so many more people are going to card shows. Well, there's many reasons, but one of them is because there's 5,000 hours worth of vendor POV accessible on YouTube at any given time. And they can see what it's like to go to a show and all the cool things you can find and all the cool deals you can do. And yeah, that caused a whole new wave of people. I know I saw Zard Lurkin in here said that he went to his first card show last year, even though he's been in the hobby for 7 years or 8 years. Yeah. And because there was, some influence and some cool, people like Ricky and the Bulbasaur and other people who inspired them to go to a card show. All right, guys, that is the main event. Let's get into some Q&A. I'm actually pleasantly surprised with how not overdrawn and late it is right now. We have time for Q&A. I'm very impressed. Dan, Ricky, good job, guys. Very succinct.
It was all Dan. You and I just listening to Dan and occasionally throwing in a little comment to be like, yeah, Dan, what you said was smart. And I also
very astute.
Yeah.
One thing I always find I find kind of cute, and I forget the exact time frame of it all. But what episode is this that we're on right now? 15. When new podcasts come out, because I need to shout out my buddy Nick, Old School Pokemon. My channel was actually born. Episode 1 of our podcast was my channel's birth. Nearly 5 years ago. My 5-year anniversary of the channel is actually coming up in like 2 weeks. So a lot of podcasts will come out thinking like, we're going to do hour episodes. We're going to keep it to 90 minutes. We're going to keep it kind of tight. And then they just like within a few episodes, they're at 3 hours because we all love this so much. We all enjoy it so much. The interaction, this is not quite to the level of late night, long days at Collecticons and stuff. But from the comfort of our own homes, it's a pretty decent midpoint, I guess. So I appreciate you guys having been here, having me on, and everyone being here in the chat, because it's always such a blast. Time 2 hours and 18 minutes, like that just flew by. How was it over 2 hours? That's crazy.
Yeah, completely agree. And
I'm good for another 5 hours, so bring on the questions.
Well, let's do about a half.
Let's do it. Turn on the red lights. Let's answer some crazy questions.
We usually do about a half an hour of Q&A, so I think that'll put us in a good spot. I have a question for the Q&A for Dan, and then I might go run to the restroom, and maybe Jake, you can pick the first one out of the chat or something. But Dan, my question to kick off the Q&A for you is should I quit my?
Oh no.
Should I quit my gambling addiction?
Did I cut out? I cut out.
Should I quit my mystery pack
quit
addiction?
my
full-time job to go full-time Pokemon cards?
Financial advice, life advice, 100% yes. I'm off the fence. No, I made a video, and I need to mention his name again. He's in the chat. He's been in the chat a bunch. One of my close friends in the space, one of my independent contractors, Ponga. He is he is making a big life change, very likely sometime soon. It's very exciting how many friends, how many like business associates I know in the space that have taken that leap, and it's kind of scary. It's everyone's situation is different. Everyone has a different family situation, personal finances. They're leaving different jobs, different industries, different risk levels of like what you're leaving. Could you get back into it? How replaceable is your job? So the actual answer is like that is a very personal decision. But we're booming out here, so it's as good as time as ever, I think. But we'd love to have you in the full-time space if you ever decide to take the leap. And I think there's a couple people that I'm associated with quite closely that are going to be joining the full-time gang though in the coming months, very, very soon. So excited for that.
So what Dan is saying is everybody's doing it. Might as well be you.
Yeah. Peer pressure.
The truth is I don't need any peer pressure. I have we'll see. I have a one-on-one with my boss on Wednesday next week, and she doesn't watch this podcast, so
wow. Chat,
I always
did you
have a
hear
one-on-one with my
that?
boss. I always have a one-on-one on Wednesday with my boss. But
Yeah, but you don't always tell us about it.
true. That's true. I know. That's the
it.
first time I've mentioned it on the stream.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Everyone's doing it.
So real quick before I take my restroom break, I might grab a snack too, and then you guys can obviously do the same if you need to. At the very beginning, this is he's in California, but I know I've seen him saying all kinds of positive stuff in your comments, Jake, and mine. So thanks, Matt. Why do we think theft? Why do you think there's more theft in Pokemon versus sports? The hype right now is probably the answer to the question, man.
Yeah, I think my speculation would just be it seems to me like TCG is maybe this is because I'm on this side of the algorithms, but it seems to me like TCG has a bigger social media presence than sports cards. More creators, especially short form, in TCG, and so with more eyeballs comes the law of large numbers. More people who would be bad actors, who might be inspired to do stupid and illegal things. That's my only guess.
One thing that I'll add, and it's mostly an assumption. It's not something that I hold too tightly. I could be wrong, but Pokemon is more recently entering into the high tier space. Pokemon is more recently getting your 5-figure and your 6-figure cards. Sports cards had a lot of that crazy stuff going on in the 90s. Sports cards came to its own, came into those upper echelons of pricing 20, 30 years ago. So, and I've heard, I listen to so much YouTube content that I can't keep it all straight. But I know that I've heard some people that used to have a sports card store back in the 90s, and some amount of that stuff went on. Social media wasn't as ubiquitous and on and on. So hard to say, but some of it might just be too that like I don't consume a lot of sports card content. I consume a little bit of some people that kind of like crossover sports and TCG, but you're probably just hearing more about the Pokemon because you're primarily into Pokemon, if I had to guess, to some extent.
Yeah, that's probably likely too.
He does say he does both, though, so maybe that's a bad presumption. But yeah, I think what I said first in like Pokemon is more newly worth a lot of money. Sports card has been worth more money for longer, so they've sorted their things out earlier.
Some people in the chat have also pointed out that a lot of like the major sports cards are serialized, so even an individual raw card is much easier to track down when someone tries to offload it. That's an interesting point. That's
a very good point. Yeah, I wouldn't have even considered that. Hey, Pokemon, protect us. Bring us serialized Charizards.
I hear that as a reason to, but also at the same time, I guess that's because even if you crack a card out of a slab, it would be untraceable. I guess that's what they're saying. Because slabs obviously all have serials, but you could crack it out and regrade it, I guess.
Yeah. Given the high 10 rate of a card like this, somebody steals this, they crack it out, they regrade it, and then swirls and thing with vintage cards. There's a little bit more of like fingerprinting going on with certain types of cards, but no, that's a really good point. That's a very good observation.
We had real quick Wind Waker with a.
I appreciate that.
I see what you're saying,
Oh.
Wind Waker. Yeah, I mean, one day I'll try to grow out a beard and it will just come in super patchy, and I'll get even more hate than I am now, just being a baby faced 32-year-old. But
All right, I'll pick a question. I'm gonna run to the restroom and grab a snack. If you guys want to take a break, we can take turns on these questions. But maybe we do this one from Krabby's Cards quite a bit earlier in the stream. How do you avoid content burnout when it hits? Do you push through or take a break?
Well, maybe let's start with Dan on this. You've been the one who's been making content for 5 years.
Yeah, it's crazy to me too. Like, I don't know how I did it, but thinking back to my earlier days, I used to do 3 videos a week. I started my channel in March of 2021, so going on 5 years. It was a few months before I quit my job, but there was some overlap where I was making 3 videos a week with my job. A lot of them were a little bit quicker, I guess, and I've always been very low quality, low budget, no editing, anything like that. But so I've had my seasons where I was 3 videos a week. I've had them where I was 2 a week. I've settled on 1 a week. So I've set myself just a manageable amount. I think, and this is not like a slight towards them. Everyone's situation is different and everything. But I think the more common YouTube interaction, at least among a lot of people that I'm close with and that I've seen, is like they'll go kind of hard. They'll make daily videos, or they'll make 3 a week or whatever, and then they'll take 6 months off, and then they'll come back and they'll do it again, and they'll just go through these cycles. I've just gone the route, like right now I have a YouTube notes sheet that I keep. I probably have 3 dozen videos in the chamber that are ready to go at any time. I could just pump them all out, and then I'd be like, oh man, what do I do next? What do I think of now? So I avoid burnout by just posting significantly less frequently. And the consistency for me is what keeps me going. Sometimes it feels a little bit like, oh man, I've got to get that video for Monday, but it keeps me honest. It keeps me motivated. It keeps me going. So I like having that like requirement to do it once a week to keep me motivated, and it's not too crazy that I don't burn out.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Yeah, I think 2 things for this on me. I totally agree with, identifying a healthy posting schedule for yourself, because everyone has different levels of responsibility and, different people that are depending on them, and different levels of skill and interest with making different types of content. It's definitely a spectrum on all of those ways. But for me, 2 points I'll add on here. Number 1 is we've transitioned to making a lot more content that is just that I really like, and I think that takes away some of the kind of burden that social media content creation can be. If you really actually like the content itself, it's the kind of thing that you would consume if someone else was making it. That helps quite a bit. And then the last thing is, and this is going to sound maybe a little bit moralizing and high horse, but I've been thinking about just kind of like how grateful I am to be where I am, full time in the industry for now, like a year and a half or so, almost. And the great reception from the audience, and going to shows all over the country now, and all these incredible things. And I feel kind of a responsibility to make content in a way to give back, whether it's, to entertain, to, educate, that kind of stuff. I feel a responsibility to do that. Because of the sheer amount of content I've consumed that has helped me get to where I am. But also, like, I see this industry, for a lot of the people that interact with it, as kind of a value capture industry, Whereas I'm more interested in like a value creation aspect. And maybe I can't do all of that because like a big part of our business is to buy cards at a lower number and sell them at a higher number. And that is by definition value capture. But if I can do that and then also create content that I feel kind of a responsibility to give back in that way. It's kind of like I do this kind of as at least in part as like I punched my ticket, I'm helping other people out there. They're entertained, they're educated in some way. They've gotten my opinion, my take on something. And I've increased the net positive in the hobby a little bit. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys.
Definitely. I relate to that. I have a lot of thoughts on this. Hopefully my Wi-Fi doesn't cut out while I'm talking about this.
That timing. Oh man.
That's
so
comical.
Are you kidding?
It
You're
was
back,
the
you're
second you
Perfect
turned
timing.
away from the screen after saying that.
Perfect timing.
Unbelievable. Every time it's been amazing timing, apparently. I'll try to be concise since my Wi-Fi is not cooperating. It doesn't take discipline to do things that you like. So that's one thing is I like the content that I create. I think that helps a lot. I think another thing, Jake, you had said to one of our mentorship clients the other day that I think is a good point is it's easier to stick to it when you get a little bit of momentum. And I think one of the ways that people might get burnout is you're spending a lot of time on it, but it doesn't feel like it's like serving anything, like no one's watching it or whatever. So if that's your experience, then maybe my thought would be like, study up a little bit on like editing, like practice your editing skills and like maybe don't put pressure on yourself to like release so much content and just get better at making YouTube videos. Because if part of the reason that you're feeling any burnout is that feeling that not enough people are watching it or that's not worth it because not enough people are watching it, that might help you to like up your skills so that you have the opportunity to release videos that people start watching. I had the fortune, I think Jake, you did too. Both of our first videos we posted did relatively well for brand new channels. And I think that relative luck of that put wind in our sails to keep going.
Yeah.
And I think it's I can totally appreciate how it would be a different experience if you spend hours and hours and you post 10 videos and each one gets 8 views and you're like, what am I should I just keep doing this or not? And that becomes like, hey, like go back to the lab would be my approach. Like, how do I make better or more content that stands out more? How do I improve my editing skills? And sort of, I don't know. Yeah. Go to the lab for 6 months and then come back out and try again when you're like really, really excited about what you're making.
Yeah, that's a very entrepreneurial, I think, approach, right? And that's at the end of the day, like having a YouTube channel, it basically is a version of a small business. And if you open a small business and you have a product and you try to take that product to market and no one buys it, there's a lot of things that could be going wrong. And you have to do that work to improve the product or improve your marketing strategy or improve the, whatever, the branding, your networking, all these different things in order to get that success. And it's the same with YouTube, right? Like, you got to bring a product that's going to capture enough eyeballs to get the clicks. You say this all the time, Ricky. People blame problems or they give credence to the algorithm, but the algorithm is designed to just give more people a chance to click on something that other people are clicking on. It's just a sign of demand for the most part.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to crack the code on demand a little bit to gain that traction.
Yeah. Well put. Let's see. Oh yeah, this one, I thought this was interesting from Lurking. Did this particular spike in Pokemon influence the One Piece and Dragon Ball spikes recently? We're
That's
not
hard to
experts in
say.
the TCGs. It is hard to say. It is interesting though. I've thought that like the Dragon Ball one seems weird.
Yeah, I've interacted minimally with One Piece for the past year or so. I actually have allocation of it from my distro, and I've never watched any of the anime. I know Luffy and Zoro, and I know a couple of the names because I'm deep into YouTube and Discord and all that stuff. But to some extent, like Pokemon is there. It's booming so much. It's the highest it's ever been, the peak of the biggest boom it's ever been in, and it's hard to access. So some amount of people who and I think there's a lot of overlap. I think there's a lot of overlap in anime enjoyers, Pokemon, Dragon Ball, One Piece. So it's like if you're out here chasing Pokemon and you're having a hard time finding it, and you also enjoy One Piece, you also enjoy Dragon Ball, it's like some portion of those people might deviate out to those areas. But now I think to some extent, like they're having the same difficulties. There's just some amount of a cardboard renaissance going on. And again, in 2020, it happened. It was more artificial. You couldn't go to the bar. You couldn't go to the sports team local game. You couldn't go to conventions. The world was shut down for several months there, largely. So it was more artificial then. You were forced to spend your money online on random different things because you couldn't interact with the world the same way. But like now you can. You can go travel. You can go see and do things. And yet people are just choosing to spend so much of their money on collectibles. I guess that's just some of my ramblings around the topic and without like much of an answer because I just don't know.
Yeah, I agree with some of what Tiny Flame is saying here, which is like it has to do with the speculation of, finding another emerging market to really make, get in at the ground floor. I think there's some of that, but I also think that phenomenon is just a downstream effect of the Pokemon becoming so well established, and the confidence in that market engendering a potential confidence in another market. And then not only like the mindset, but also the actual dollars. There are tons of people who have now made great money selling Pokemon cards who have adjacent interests in other IPs and can now move some of that new money that they've made into those IPs. And then they make some content about that. And it's the same kind of loop that has been created with Pokemon, where when attention shifts, so do, revenue streams.
Yeah, makes sense. Control Alt Drew asked a little earlier, if Pokemon really ups printing numbers, what might that do to card shows, number of card shows, people in the hobby, live streaming, etc.?
I'd love to hear Dan's opinion here, but let me quickly just quick off the cuff reaction here. In my mind, Pokemon has made a very calculated step in the direction of increasing supply by getting this, this new location that they're going to have up and running in a couple of years. I think that's an incredibly calculated decision to make, because they could have, they're making enough money. They could do this. They could have done this years ago, or immediately when they saw demand spike last year, they could have tried to pull this trigger, but they're doing it years down the road. It sounds like they're taking their time to make sure it's outfitted and the QA is going to be good. My gut reaction here is that they're speculating that they're going to grow in conjunction with the actual market and the demand. And so I think it's very possible that it's less this is a double negative. It's less deflationary in the value of items than we think it could be, because the market could grow organically to meet that increased demand when it lands. What's your take, Dan?
Yeah, I think Pokemon is very strategically doing all this. Again, they 25 years or 20 to 25 years ago, they survived nearly printing the IP to death. And one thing a lot of people will say is that Pokemon is the highest grossing media franchise of all time. I think everyone knows that. It's being said in the space all the time. But one thing that people don't realize is how small a fraction trading cards are to that broader picture. The vast majority, I don't know the exact numbers, but I want to say Pokemon is like $150 billion in total sales. It's like 15 billion of that is trading cards. 90% is like video games and merchandise and the box office with the movies that they have. So I think I trust them very deeply. There are lots of trading card games that have failed over the past 30 years that Pokemon has been surviving. And there's a lot of them that have failed over the past 5 years, from the last boom to this boom. And I just think Pokemon has been through so much that I fully believe in their ability to navigate it properly. So I think they're going to, like, if you want to talk about like the broader economy industries, making computer chips is way more complicated. Making RAM for computers is so much more complicated, and the rare earth materials that are needed for that, logistically getting the materials, like printing cards is not difficult. Making plastic to encapsulate said cards is not that difficult. So I just I think PSA, CGC, BGS, Pokemon, in Bandai, I know I've not interacted with any of their properties at great depth, but historically I think Bandai has been one to print things to death. And I think there was a lot of like Rudy again, a very public figure in the space. He talks about how he doesn't really trust Lorcana. He doesn't really trust certain different TCGs because of their history caving into the game piece army and their involvement in different aspects of the markets. I think it's all interesting because there truly is a number that can overdo it. But I just have high faith in Pokemon. And Rudy kind of talks about Pokemon historically having been the gold standard. Magic has had more ups and downs. Magic has had to go the serialization route. They've had to go to the Universes Beyond route to kind of collab and bring more people in because they've kind of abused that consumer base more with like deep reaching back years and years reprints. So it'll be interesting to see how One Piece navigates that, looping back into the last question. But yeah, I think done intelligently, done sustainably, it will just, rising tide lifts all ships. It will grow the hobby in a healthy way. And I think this time will pass. Like someday, long enough timeline, some people will see it in a weird negative way, but it is needed out of the hobby. Like things will become available for MSRP again. Will it be destined? Will it be prismatic? I don't know. I don't know when the printers will come on. I don't know all that. But Pokemon does not love, Walmart does not love not having cards on the shelf in the store, right? You don't make money on an empty shelf. I guess you made money in the process of it becoming empty, but like there's opportunity left. So I think it'll all come around.
Frack Gaming asked, what's something y'all think card shows should change to make for a better experience for everyone?
More security.
It's a big one that came to mind for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the only other thing I can think of is like, and this is really tough, again, with a growing market, that striking the balance between buyers and sellers in the same room is difficult. And a card show organizer can make a lot of money just selling tables to vendors and then not even really being concerned with how many attendees there are. Some shows don't charge any sort of entrance fee, and so they don't maybe need to even market the show as much, but there's enough vendors to fit the bill. Those kinds of shows are not long for this world because vendors kind of get tired of not having great shows and having high expenses and low sales. But yeah, that balance needs to be struck. But the bigger thing I would say, as far as like what's the thing that needs to happen right now, is just more security.
Yeah, I agree with that. it needs to be done in an intelligent way. It needs to be done in a way that doesn't just done improperly. You could have 6-hour queues to get into an 8-hour show, right? Like that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So it needs to be done in an intelligent way that doesn't overly burden the flow, but to some extent, like the safety of the participants is worth some amount of added headache there. Other than that, I think a lot of the shows are doing a great job. Every show kind of has their own flavor, their own desire to cater towards different needs. So one thing that I'm trying to consciously do too is like I've been to so many Collecticons. I went to my first card party, Seattle recently, where I got to see both you in person, which was great. Yeah. So I haven't been to a front row yet. I don't even know, like you guys know so many more card shows better that I don't know what the best ones are even doing. I don't know what they're all doing differently. But that's something
Come
that
to Vegas,
intend to
Dan.
explore more this year.
Come to Vegas. Let's play Baccarat late into the night. You and me. Let's do it.
One of these days. I don't know if it's in the cards this year, but one of these days for sure.
I know you're a gambler. I know you're an intelligent gambler. Let's do it. Come on to Vegas, front row card show. We'll have a ball.
One of these days for sure. I'll have to make it happen.
Curious what you guys think of this. The biggest local show in my area for Saturdays started selling like different tiers of tickets at different times. So like a more expensive VIP ticket earlier in the day. And then there's like the afternoon saver after 2 o'clock. You can show up and it's cheaper. What do you think of that approach to that was designed specifically because they completely, from an attendance standpoint, outgrew their venues that they have access to. And so it was a bad experience to be a buyer there for a little bit. And then they're like, we basically have to sell fewer tickets, but we can make the same revenue if we increase the price of some of these tickets and phase people in. Like, what's your reaction to that sort of approach? You love it or hate it? Or
I don't mind that at all. I think, you know, they learned that from a pretty popular live event place called Disneyland, and they seem to be doing really well. And there's people where that fits their schedule better. And I would say the majority of people that are going to shows as attendees are not trying to be there for 8 hours. They're trying to be there for like 2, you know, pick up a cool cards and bounce. And it doesn't have to be so sweaty and, you know, burdensome for their entire family to be there the whole day. So I love that idea.
Yeah. And love it or hate it, it's responding to market realities of supply and demand. Like surge pricing exists for a reason. If you're out in the town in a city away from home and you're out at the bars and the bars close at 2 in the whole city, that Uber that costs you $20 at 2 p.m., it's going to cost you $80 at 2 a.m. because everyone is leaving the bar together. It's supply and demand. And I've been to different collectible shows around me, coin shows and card shows, and I've got some beer steins behind me. Collector boy Dan collects some beer steins. It is a thing. VIP early access. It's $5 at one of my local Stein shows. It's free to go after 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. or whatever. But if you want to be there when the getting's good, if you want to get the first deals, the lay of the land, you got to cough up $5. So it's even a thing in the Stein space.
Interesting.
Oh, I think we lost him again.
He says, how do y'all feel about the difference between in-person selling / vending versus stream selling? I personally just feel more comfortable in person vending because of the one-on-one interactions. Excuse me. Let me speak to this personally, because if you would have asked me a year ago, I would have said that there's no chance that I ever try to live stream. But starting in July, I think, of last year, we have done like a weekly live stream to sell, I think pretty much every week except for maybe one around Christmas time. And I had those same beliefs that I was like, oh, well, the main reason I like to vend is because I love this in-person interaction, and, you know, we can make a connection over the card and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, I actually like people, and so I like to see people in person. But the live stream has its own kind of version and flavor of that, and it can be so fun. And the cool thing about it is, like, when you're interacting with, let's say, 100 people in your stream and they're all in chat, you can kind of have like it's like a different dynamic, and it can be a lot of fun. And obviously tons of people have proven that it can be just as successful from a business standpoint. But it may not be for you. So I would say that the best next step would be, if you really get the handle on vending and you're looking for an additional sales channel, to just give it a try and see how you like it. Some people try it and are turned off immediately and don't want to do it again. And some people try it and they pivot their entire business to go that way. I was vending a couple of years ago, and there are people that are now only streaming because they tried that line of business and now they've pivoted 100% in that direction.
Yep. Yeah, I've done a little bit of both myself. Years ago, I did a little bit of like live streaming on my YouTube, coupled with a Shopify. I make appearances with PK and Ponga on some Fanatics live streams here and there. But I've determined, after having vended some collecticons, after having done some live streams, I'm just not desiring to do it as like the vast majority of my business. I like being the sourcing side of the operation. I do like my interactions, but not as a salesman, not in that sales role. I do weekly live streams on YouTube. I was live last night on my own channel. I'm live here tonight. I love the Q&A style, engaging with chat, just not as much. But I find people, and I don't think I'm great at it either. Frankly, I don't think I'm great at live streaming, but I enjoy that more, so I do that. But I've got PK, I've got Ponga, I've got over on eBay, I've got Spat, Grimer, Bierski, all these people. I help business to business. I help, like, we lift each other up. We connect our strengths and weaknesses in a way that benefits both of us, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think you guys are, well, Jake, you in particular, are best poised to answer this because you do a fair bit more of both.
Yeah, well, I also think, and Ricky, you can say your piece here because I know you guys are going to try out streaming pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
Ricky and I are both like lifelong trained salespeople, and so the probability that we pivot our entire business into business to business supply chain more like Dan is pretty low, because like the negotiation, the selling, the in-person, the telling the story, the persuasion, like that's what we live for. That's there's a reason that we have kind of started out our business with the like in-person, most like visceral sales interactions that you can have in this industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I haven't done a stream yet. We are planning to do one in a week, but I've done a lot of Instagram story sales, and it's somewhat similar. Like, it's more similar, I think, to stream selling than vending. I like, with vending, you can only do it on the weekends. And so there's like a real sacrifice there. And if you're totally reliant on that, you're not doing anything during the week. So I like the idea of some of these remote ways of doing things from home that replicate some of the experience of selling at a show virtually. And I think selling through streams or on Instagram or whatever, it's sort of the closest comp you can get sitting on your couch or whatever, sitting at your desk. So I love doing a few story sales here and there, especially right after a show, because all my cards are already comped, all priced out. I have everything stickered. So just take photos. I don't have to like look anything up. It's really easy to do a Monday after a show type of story sale. So, and I know, Jake, your streams are Tuesdays, usually after a show. So kind of similar thing. Like, it's a supplemental way to keep things moving.
Yeah. One last piece I'll add here is like, I love to open packs. And so live streaming gives me a chance to open some cool packs. Like we've opened on the live stream, we've opened Legendary Collection, we've opened Sky Ridge, we've opened tons of cool Sun and Moon, XY, Black, White, Heart Gold, Soul Silver packs, and then obviously tons of modern stuff. And yeah, I mean, like, maybe selfishly, to crowdsource the expense for having the experience of opening really cool packs, like, that's tons of fun.
Yes, it's almost like the vending being your collection. You're living vicariously through the people that you're selling to. It's a strategic way to kind of get that enjoyment without the cost.
Yeah, and believe you me, like, I'm out here, I degen a handful of packs here and there, but like, I can't match what like 150 people could do in a single night. You know what I'm saying?
Everyone has a finite budget. Yep.
Yep.
Agreed. So as we're closing out on 3 hours, I was thinking maybe this kind of deep question from Longshot Blade closes us out. What is, for each of us, our greatest fear and greatest strength? We've been through our own hero's journeys. Much love.
In the words of Dwight Schrute, my greatest fear is being more successful than I ever thought I could possibly be, or something super cliche like that. No. So something absolutely pretentious. No, actually, I want to hear from Dan first here.
Oh man,
because of the three of us in the Pokemon industry, you're by far the most successful.
So is this my greatest fear with respect to the market? Are we going Pokemon market, or are we going real deep, real broad, like life type stuff?
Maybe we keep it in the bounds of Pokemon business / market / collection, etc.
So my greatest fear, and as much as people won't like to hear it, there is some % chance that in 20 years we look back and we like, how did we all lose our minds? How did we truly? I don't think this is the case, and I hope it's not the case. But and maybe you guys will touch on this a little bit too. Some days I wake up and it's like I have to sell everything. We've all lost our minds. Well, like $20,000 Black Label Burger Chew several months ago. That was one of those days where it's like, this is all absurd. Sell it all. It's all going to zero. So one of my larger fears is that like I think there's some % chance that just 10, 20, 30 years from now, all this stuff will have been looked back upon as like a graded card super bubble, a cardboard super bubble. I hope it's not the case, but that fear exists there. And we are nearing the end. I know that a couple people out there have not blotted out their entire bingo card. So we are going to finalize their bingo card right here. One way that I hedge that fear is my buckets. I hedge that fear by paying down debt, the emergency fund, saving for retirement.
Wait, how did you get that on the screen? How did you possibly get that on the screen?
He's a live stream expert.
I have the overlay in OBS. I have that ready to go.
To death. This is insane.
I have that at all times. At all times. You know, this one is there too. I've got my SMART goals there. I've got a bunch of them there. But one fear that I truly do have is that like this stuff all really could just intrinsic value is 0, and someday it could approach its intrinsic value. 30 years from now, we could look back and we could say, oh, that actually was more like Beanie Babies than I ever suspected. I hope that's not the case. I don't think that will be the case. I wouldn't have that much of my net worth in it if I truly thought that high likelihood. But I do hedge. So one of my greatest fears is, and I'm having a blast. It kind of scares me that like 10 years from now, this might not be a thing I can do as a job. That does kind of truly scare me. And maybe it's funny, like some people call me extremely bullish and some people call me extremely bearish. And I say that this stuff could go down. So that's like inherently bearish, right? But over half my net worth is in this stuff. And we'll be fine. We would get by if all this stuff went to 0. But we would be doing a lot worse than had I sold it all and ran off into the sunset financially independent, right? So yeah, that fear does exist. I think it's a very low probability outcome. But Pokemon over the years has treated me very well. My life has fundamentally changed because of it. I'm glad I was bullish. I'm glad I was long on cardboard. I'm glad that I quit my job. In many respects, the last 12 years, like I've vastly underestimated it. And large parts of me might be doing that again. 20 years from now, I actually think it's slightly more likely 20 years from now. Everything is probabilistic to me. I don't guarantee anything. I'm not certain of anything. But I think it's more likely 20 years from now, I look back and I say, screw the buckets. What was I doing, Dan, you dummy? 401ks, IRAs, like I should have listened to all the PokeTubers. Like S&P 500, it gets destroyed by Evolving Skies and Destined Rivals. I think that's a more likely outcome. But that like underlying fear, that underlying knowledge that there is risk, that leads me to the buckets. So I think that's a strength of mine. So, some would call that a weakness of mine. Some would say, "Oh, Dan, you dummy, you could have doubled your money on Destined Rivals more than you did. You could have." But context, like I was buying Crown Zenith packs, I was buying 151 packs instead of Destined Rivals. I'm doing just fine. But I think one of my strengths is I know what I know and I know what I don't know. And I think there's a lot of people that go through life being a lot more certain and throwing around the guarantees. And it serves them while it serves them until it doesn't, until they go a little bit too far out on that risk curve. And then something happens they didn't expect, something changes fundamentally, and they lose it all. One thing that I can confidently say, I'm never going to go all in enough on something to become a billionaire. I'm never going to become a billionaire. I don't have the drive. I'm not going to take the risks that are required, but I'm also never going to go bankrupt either. I'm also never going to go so far out on the risk curve that's going to hurt my family. And I've got kids and all that too, wife, kids, and that I have to look after and support financially. So maybe some of my bearishness is out of defense. This is my livelihood. More than half of my net worth is here. So maybe some amount of that is a being overly defensive, if that makes sense. So rants and rambles there. Hopefully that suffices for my greatest fear and my greatest strength.
I love it.
Where are you guys at on that?
Well, I think I love what you said. I love what you said here about loss aversion. But I think the one thing that I will disagree with is your 10, 20-year fear of looking back and thinking, oh my gosh, we should have sold it all. I think the regardless of up or down market value, interest, whatever, and all of these items, we're going to look back on these years and we're going to think that they were the good old days, regardless of what happens. And again, this is very cheesy, but I'm about halfway through book 2 of Brendan Sanderson's Stormlight Archive series, and one of the quotes in that book that all of the knights live by is life before death, and this idea of like there's a time for all things to go down the drain, but live life in an exciting and interesting and meaningful way for you now, and regardless of how it ends, that's the right way to live. And maybe I'll dovetail that into my answer to this question. We'll have Ricky go last, because his is going to be the most correct, because I think of the three of us, he's the smartest. Sorry, that's not tongue in cheek. I'm actually serious. So my greatest fear here, and I think that my greatest fear is piggybacked on something that I believe to be true about the human condition, which is your experience of satisfaction and meaningfulness in your life is directly tied to how much responsibility that you take. And if you are feeling like life is empty, it's probably because you haven't taken on enough responsibility, whether over yourself, over your own future, or at a certain point you kind of have that locked down, and so it's time to extend to other people. And the way that the business has unfolded for me and Fran over the last year or so has changed my mind about the amount of responsibility that I think I should take with this business. And so I've extended it to include family members, siblings for now. And who knows how many people it would be in the future. But that's the plan as of now. And so my biggest fear is that, in pursuing a life of more meaningfulness and taking on that responsibility, I expose other people to risk, and I don't produce for them in the way that they need in order to have their needs met, and or I over-exercised my natural inclination to persuade people, to invite them to be included, and maybe against their not necessarily their will, but like, you know, their initial interest. Maybe I was just persuasive enough to get some people involved and they really shouldn't have been, or something like that, right? And there's regrets down the road. That's my biggest fear. But my greatest strength is that, I care enough about those people and I care enough about myself that the situation that would have to happen in order for my fears to be realized would have to be that, like, I quit, or there was some sort of crazy emergency that's out of my control. And I don't think I'm going to do that. So we'll see. Like Dan says, there's always risk on the one side. But there's a lot of things that are in my control, and particularly my work ethic and my willingness to try to make this happen for myself and for the people around me every single day is to a level that I think it's really low likelihood that I fail.
Yeah. One thing that I'll add too quick before Ricky goes is the angle that I played was more self-centered, I guess. It was more focused around me and my family. But one thing that is there for me too is not employees, but independent contractors. PK quit his job a little over a year ago. He does some of his own things, but one of his largest revenue sources is streaming on Fanatics, my inventory. Ponga, very likely taking the leap very soon. His largest single income source is going to be streaming on Fanatics, my inventory. Another guy potentially making a leap relatively soon, Spat. He sells mostly his own stuff, but he's utilizing my platform on eBay Live. Bierski's a guy who quit his job. He quit his job several months ago. I don't think quite a year. But his largest income source is through eBay Live on my platform. So it's like, if and when that fear hits, it's not just me and my family. It is many of my closest friends in the space and their families. So the ramifications would be very, and I told Ricky an hour ago to quit his job. So he'll be affected too. I mean,
yeah, if I quit my job and it all goes bad, it's your fault, Dan.
Yeah.
No. My answer to this question, and again, hopefully, I'm going to say hopefully my Wi-Fi holds up, and then it's going to cut out right now. Greatest fear would be that, like, I am having such a good time right now, and that something out of my control causes that to end before I've gotten to do what I want to do. And so on a micro level, that could be algorithms or interests change, or the Pokemon market changes, and it just is a very different thing. And like Jake said, the good old days, we look back on it, and the good old days were like only a year long. And it's like, man, I want like several more years like how I feel right now. So that's my fear. On a more global or personal level, it's sort of like manifests sometimes as like fear of dying. I as a teenager, I never cared about dying, and then now I've got so much to lose. I'm like, I need to just stay alive long enough to see through all these things I want to do. And that's in Pokemon, and that's in other things too. I've talked about, we just got foster dog number 4 this like 2 hours before we started the stream. And you know, I want to save like 1,000 dogs. Like, I need to not die before that happens. And on the smaller level, on the Pokemon level, I want this to keep going for as long as it can, because it's such a blast. So that's I fear that going away. I think strength. I think I'm a fairly good like first principles thinker, and that allows me to learn things fast, and I get obsessed easily about things. And so I learn concepts, and I learn the Pokemon space, I think, relatively fast. And I learned YouTube relatively fast. And the way I learn those things, 80% of the time, I can reverse, like I can explain very simply what the ingredients were. And so I think that allows me to be a reasonably effective educator on YouTube and on this podcast and with our mentorship clients. I think I have a reasonable amount of strength there to articulate here are the 10 things I learned along the way from experience, and to like package that neatly where it's really digestible for somebody else to do in to understand what I came to understand in even less time than I came to understand it. So I think those would be mine.
I love it. I love it, guys. That's a great final question to end the story on. End the live stream on, except for we always finish with, except for maybe last stream, we totally blew past it and forgot.
Elite forecast.
But we have an elite forecast, which is a very specific call out of the value of an item in the future, to which our entire reputation and credibility is tied to. If it doesn't happen, then we are fakes and also just bad businessmen. So with that note and that risk on the line, Dan, what is your elite forecast?
We will see our first under MSRP booster box in more than a year this year. And maybe that's not like too hot and too spicy. I've seen a couple of videos come out now about oh man, my mind is blanking on what the next set is called.
Perfect Order.
Perfect Order. Yeah. I don't know if it'll be that set, but I think it will be this year. Mind you, I've been calling for a year for Destined Rivals to be available under MSRP, for Prismatic to be under MSRP, and I've been wrong for 14 months in a row, right? So I'm very open to being wrong, but I think it's finally going to happen. If I call for it every year for the next 50 years, I'm eventually going to be right? Broken clock twice a day, all that stuff. So that's my elite forecast. I don't think it will be Perfect Order. I think it'll be, or no, is the next one's the Greninja one. I might have to stick with Perfect Order actually. Let me put it on Perfect Order. Sometime in the next 6 months, Perfect Order will be available under MSRP.
Okay. Yeah, mine's actually right adjacent to that. So mine is very specific that Perfect Order will get to below MSRP, but that Ascended Heroes never will.
Never.
I like guaranteed. It. Guaranteed.
I love always never guaranteed, my favorite words. Oh, yes.
I know. It's an elite forecast. I have to be bullish. I have to say,
I know.
Put a line in the sand. And I'm going to say Ascended Heroes will never get to MSRP as far, even at the per pack price, which I know you think is even more crazy, Dan. I'm not talking about ETBs or blisters. I'm talking about packs will never get to MSRP.
Can I change mine or make an additional one? Because I thought of one that I was thinking of before and I forgot to use it.
No, it's too late. We would never hear another idea from you. So let's move on.
PSA will become more expensive. They will increase the prices again before they decrease the prices. So all the drama, all the people being very upset about that, I think they go to 30 before they go to 20.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Sorry to cheat and do 2, but I'll let you go now, Ricky.
Yeah, we'll just edit out that first one. And I'll delete it in post editing.
There we go.
I heard a lot of guarantees. Mine is less guaranteed.
What is that? That's a lukewarm cast. Come on, give us the elite forecast.
Mine is so I actually wrote one for last stream, and I'm just gonna stick with it. I felt that the Giratina V Lost Origin alt art PSA 10 undervalued, smaller pop, still a big pop, smaller pop than other major Sword and Shield chases that have like 20,000. It moved from like 1.7 to 2, and then recent sales went to like 2.15 since the last stream. So it already did like several percent move. And I think it's still 10% undervalued. Like its peak was around 2.3 in October. So I think why isn't that a 2.3 to 2.5K card now that everything else is doing what it's doing? And in that time, that's not that lukewarm, because in that time, Moonbreon went down. Moonbreon went down like 10% since our last stream, and this card has gone up like 10%. I think there's still room to go. So Giratina V alt art, PSA 10, undervalued.
I love it. I love it. All right, gentlemen, any last words before we bid all these people good night?
I already did my Pokemon Day pump earlier. I guess I'll just remind in case anybody new cycled through.
Do it.
Fanatics Live, me, PK Ponga. We did. This is not me. I'm not like a big salesman. I'm not a big marketer. but team up with KetchumAll Collectibles on Fanatic Live. It's a nice, clever. It's a nice, clever thing. Team up with us, win a $10,000 card. No purchase necessary. Click a button to enter a giveaway, and best of luck to you. That one being given away for free. So exciting.
I love it. I love it. Be sure to check out Dan's YouTube channel. That's it's just called KetchumAll Collectibles on YouTube. And you do live streams frequently, great videos, very educational, very insightful. And other than that, guys, that's all for tonight. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another volume of Midweek Machamps. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for the super chats. Thanks for the engagement and all the kind comments. Everybody have a great evening.
See y'all.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, chat.